Dragon Clan. Mingfei Returns from Warhammer 40,000. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151. Good Child. When Mingfei said this, the other school directors had already noticed the atmosphere in the air quietly changing. But they could not expect that this atmosphere would turn into a storm that swept the whole place in the blink of an eye. Mingfei's figure disappeared instantly, leaving only the scarlet silk velvet cloth still fluttering in the air. Amid the piercing screams, the long table in front of the school directors had been shattered in the sharp sword wind, and before the broken long candle flames were extinguished, a more dazzling light was lit. Those were the pairs of golden eyes lit by the school directors. To be the head of a mixed blood family, their bloodline was naturally the highest rated existence. Director Frost was no exception. But before their eyes caught Mingfei's figure, the first thing that sounded in their ears was Frost's shock roar. Frost was the only one who responded among the people present, because Mingfei's killing intention was only aimed at him. He even expected that the boy would be angry because of this, but he didn't expect it to be so thoroughly fatal. The alchemical sword that might have harvested the lives of the next generation of dragons passed by like silver lightning, heading straight for his heart, aiming to kill him with one strike. The side of the god of death had never been so close as it was at this moment. Before the long table shattered, his fingers struck the final blow, and then his eyes lit up with shining golden light. The other school directors at the meeting opened their eyes wide. No one had ever seen Frost like this, like a beast that was cornered. Except for Amch, who was highly active in the battlefield of slaying dragons, other big figures of the secret party rarely showed their bloodline or abilities, especially Frost. He gave people the feeling of being a high-ranking old tycoon who could kill most people in the world by waving money. The fighting spirit as a dragon slayer may have been worn out by alcohol and luxurious life. But at this moment, he was roaring loudly, pulling out the sharp rapier hidden in the cane, and the sword was as sharp as the sea, launching a desperate counterattack against the 17-year-old god of death. It can't be said to be useful, but it can't be said to be useless either. Mingfei frowned slightly, and the air everywhere suddenly became as sticky as glue. His movements were slightly restricted. Under Frost's sword burst, the tip of the sword finally deviated from Frost's heart. But it didn't matter. Jinyu's sword had already pierced Frost's chest. Next, he just needed to cut the heart and body in half with the blade. It was just that the scene might be bloodier. Dong dong dong, there came a heavy sound of footsteps like a war drum behind him, and hideous monsters rushed into the conference room, trampling on the fragments of the long table at an astonishing speed and rushed straight to Mingfei. The surface of these monsters' bodies was covered with blue-gray scales and pale bones. Only the dark suit strips left on the swollen muscles could prove that they were once human. Mingfei was not surprised by their arrival. The malicious eyes he felt when he was listening outside the door came from these Gattuso's followers. Since Frost dared to invite him here, he must have been prepared to suppress him violently. These people might be elite hybrids trained to fight against aliens. At this moment, they all stood on the opposite side of Mingfei. The cavalry swords in their hands cut through the air with a shriek that was terrifying. Frost's mouth and nose were bleeding wildly, and the golden light in his pupils shone to the extreme. He wrapped Mingfei in his word spirit domain, and the air seemed to turn into a man-eating wetland swamp, slowing Mingfei's movements and speed to the minimum. Frost took this opportunity to lean back and get rid of the blade that pierced his chest, and fell to the ground and rolled over several times in an awkward manner. Don't hold back, he roared loudly and ordered the followers who had already gathered to pounce on Mingfei, but the next moment, he swallowed the words that had not yet been spoken in his throat. A pair of hazy holy golden wings of light stretched out from behind Mingfei, and as the wings of light appeared, the power of the word spirit collapsed instantly. Mingfei's eyes, which were shining with brilliant golden light, glanced over indifferently, making Frost feel powerless and suffocated. Then he turned around, and with the silver sword still dripping with blood in his hand, he turned around to harvest the lives of those monster-like Gattuso family followers. It took about 6 seconds, and none of the followers' blades or fists could touch Mingfei. All he could see were their sharp edges like lightning piercing through their scales and bone armor, and the blood from the heart spurting out from the wounds like a scarlet fountain. After the short killing time, Mingfei came back to his senses again and rushed towards Frost, who was still slumped on the ground, to continue the unfinished purification process. Don't really care about them, Mingfei. Anger's words with a little helplessness sounded, and the domain of word spirit. Time Zero enveloped the entire conference room, and the flow of time was slowed to the minimum. The remaining blood on the Jinyu sword edge tracked a scarlet tail and slowly stayed in the air. Lumenfei's pupils sparkled with golden light as he looked at Angus. He was in a posture of drawing a sword, and his body was as agile as an eagle flapping its wings. Such a scene in ancient Greece would at least allow artists to create a few more immortal sculptures. He was not within the scope of the domain of Time Zero. It was obvious that Angus was really afraid that Lumenfei would kill Frost. Out of respect for you, give me a reason not to purify him, Principal Angus. Lumenfei said slowly, and the pair of light wings behind him swayed gently in the restraint of Time Zero. It's useless to kill him. Frost is just a manager pushed forward by the Gattuso family. If he dies, someone else will take his place and take revenge on you with all his might. I know you are not afraid of them. To be honest, I couldn't have imagined that you would actually kill a second-generation species, maybe even a higher level. And grinned as he bit the cigar. But killing Frost will really do you no good. Your angel regiment still needs time and resources to improve and grow. If you keep him alive, at least I can convince other school directors to invest in you. Just like you said, warriors also need logistics to provide them with food and weapons. And we still have a lot of aliens that need to be purified, don't we? There's no need to waste time and energy on these things. And spread his hands. Heretics are also within the scope of purification. And he just threatened me with Shuzahang and his family. Lumenfei frowned, his body swaying in the field of Time Zero and gradually regaining the ability to move. He dragged innocent humans into the water, so he is a heretic. Then I let Frost apologize to you. Write a letter of guarantee? Angus rubbed his forehead with a headache. Blood. Lumenfei shook his head and straightened his waist. The light wings behind him and the stimulated alien blood in his body provided him with strength. Now he is in the field of Time Zero, which is equivalent to being pardoned and free. Okay. Angus exhaled a puff of thick cigar smoke helplessly. You have become a lot stronger on this trip to Japan. Is this all your strength now? No. Lumenfei shook his head again and walked towards Frost in this quiet field. He deliberately did not use the prophecy psychic ability, and fought purely with the power of this body. Although the explosive power under normal conditions is quite good, it will be affected by the power of the dragon's words. Summoning the wings of psychic energy, that is, the weak scent form outside the Nibelungen, can get rid of the power of the dragon's words to a certain extent, and at the same time greatly enhance physical fitness again. There is no gene seed and organ technology corresponding to the 19 transformation operations in his hometown. He also needs to find and determine the universal method of strengthening himself and other fighting brothers as soon as possible. Very good. Ange smiled again, and he didn't say anything more. As the light in his eyes dimmed, the area that dyed the conference room grey was gradually fading. Time resumed its flow. Lumenfei waved the Jinyu, and no longer gave Frost a chance to resist. For example, he twisted off the silver round head on the top of the cane and wanted to throw it out, but then he was shocked to find that his arms were splashing blood and leaving his body. There won't be a next time, heretic. Lumenfei said coldly, gently shaking off a few drops of blood on the edge of the Jinyu sword. Frost gritted his teeth, his face gloomy like the deep sea abyss. What made him feel more humiliated than the pain from the broken arm was the ruthless and almost overwhelming blow from Lumenfei. He no longer doubted whether the other party really had the power to kill the next generation. He began to worry whether this uncontrolled power would become a butcher's knife to tear apart the Gattuso family in the future. Lumenfei stepped on the broken wood chips in the pool of blood and picked up the piece of red velvet silk that wrapped Jinyu. Under the gaze of the other school directors with complicated and uncertain expressions, he left the room without looking back and walked into the wind and snow outside the corridor. Norma, notify the emergency rescue team to come, and bring an ice bucket by the way. Angus looked at Frost, who was sitting on the ground without both arms, and shook his head helplessly. His swordsmanship is very good. With your bloodline and your family's medical level, he will recover in a short time. Frost said nothing. He hung his head, and no one present could see his expression clearly. Ange, you actually brought such a dangerous lunatic into the academy, the old school director in a black suit spoke in a deep voice, staring coldly at Ange who was still smoking a cigar, with fine bead of sweat faintly on his forehead. This can't be blamed on me, nor on him. It was Frost who was too talkative. Ange shrugged, your control desire is too strong, Frost. When you see a kitten, you want to put a collar on it. When you stare at a lion, you want to put a chain on it. Don't even see a dinosaur and want to put a bridle on it for your own use. This child is more dangerous than you, Ange. Do you have the confidence to control this double-edged sword? The monk school director read the red sandalwood Buddhist beads in his hand, his expression equally ugly. Hectares, it sounds like you won't discuss whether to replace my position as the principal in the short term. Ange said with a smile, besides, of course I can't control him, and I don't want to control him. But I can assure you that Mingfei is really a good kid. Chapter 152 Pompei Gattuso. Mingfei walked straight out of the splendid hotel, which was like a fortress. The snow and wind and portofino quickly condensed and faded the bloodstains on his face. The bloodshed in the conference room had not yet spread completely, so the members of the Gattuso family stationed here did not stop him from attacking him. Frost's rebellion did not bring any emotional fluctuations to Mingfei except that he was defined as a heretic. He had seen more inhumane chaos heretics, and Frost could only be regarded as a relatively stupid and corrupt planetary capital noble. Mingfei even heard from the fighting brothers of the Salamanders that on a planet invaded by the Tyranids, the stupid governor of the planet wanted to feed them and the residents who failed to evacuate to the defensive circle in time because he disliked the Salamanders' reinforcements coming too little. In the end, the Salamanders and the Salamander's fearless brother desperately sent the residents into the defensive circle, and they died heroically under the siege of the Sea of Insects. Afterwards, the reinforcements of the Salamanders arrived at the planet. After purifying all the Zeg, they saw the flag of the Salamanders being held tightly by a little girl from the Hive City. They were so angry that they directly massacred all the nobles on the planet. Even the accompanying Inquisition closed their eyes and pretended not to see it. The only regret of Mingfei was that he failed to bring Frost, who blasphemed and threatened the Astartes, to justice, but not yet at least. His regiment has not yet taken shape, and completely tearing his face with these nobles is not conducive to the subsequent purification of aliens and heretics. The model armor that is still being manufactured may also be recycled. It was the mercy of St. Jerome that saved them. If it were brothers from other regiments, they would never be as soft-hearted as I am. Mingfei thought, and quickly put this little thing behind him. If the Gattuso family still wants to get entangled, then more blood will be shed. Looking at the snow-covered bay in the distance, Mingfei inevitably thought of the mysterious boy again. His appearance was exactly the same as the portraits and statues of the primarchs treasured by the regiment. Recalling the holy substance that looked like a gem fragment carried by St. Gina, who seemed to be in his true form, with his blood chalice when he killed the White King, could it be a fragment of St. Gina's soul? Thinking of this, Mingfei couldn't help but tremble with excitement. That was definitely a great honor. In the messy conference room, the rescue team of the Gattuso family rushed to send the injured acting head of the family for treatment. Because of Ange's friendly reminder, they also brought a low-temperature sterile box to carefully keep Frost's arms. With Frost's bloodliner and the private medical level of the Gattuso family, it would be no problem to reconnect the arms in time. But those two scars, I'm afraid they will be engraved in the heart of the acting head of the family forever. Also carried out were the dead followers of the Gattuso family who had knelt on the ground. Their ferocious dragon-like images have not yet faded. Because of their special nature, they would be handled by the Gattuso family's personnel stationed here. Before the guy Pompey connects here, how about we continue this meeting? Angus smiled and stomped out his cigar, inviting the 5 school directors who had not left yet. Although this situation did not conform to the party rules of the secret party, there was no better choice at the moment. In silence, the 5 school directors, 3 men and 2 women, extinguished their golden pupils and sat back on their benches. The one who had not yet stabilized his emotions was the lovely school director Charlotte. At her signal, the housekeeper moved the bench to sit next to Baroness Laurent. Mingfei's previous word had made it very clear that there was no so-called loyalty between him and the school board. He was simply a powerful dragon-slaying warrior with a little madness. But it cannot be denied that the school directors present really need such a warrior. Such a person is just like Ange, who exists for revenge, and there is no possibility of cooperating with the Dragon Clan or other organizations to seek benefits. Therefore, the school directors can rest assured to hand over some power to him. Mingfei is a good kid. I personally suggest that you give him more space. Don't learn from Frost, that rude guy. Everyone wants to wear Gattuso's collar. Ange said with a smile, especially in this era when the Dragon Clan is about to revive and the end of the world is approaching. From the data summary given by Norma, since 1991, well, that is, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, The revival of dragons has begun to accelerate, and the activities of Deadpool and the risk of hybrid degeneration have also risen to an indicator that alerts humans. Hectares, it sounds like the Soviet Union suppressed these monsters before 1991. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn. Ange's joke was not funny. The term Dragon Clan revival was like a mountain pressing on everyone's heart. Today's secret party may have changed from the dragon-slaying organization that shed blood to kill the Dragon Clan to a monopoly-leading capital that maintains its own existence and reaps its own interests from the fate of the current world. But the existence of the dragon race is always a shadow hovering over their heads. Even if the families of the school directors can influence the finance of Wall Street and the huge capital flow of the European Union, when the Black Emperor and the Four Kings wake up and return to the world, the so-called capital strength of the school directors will burst like a bubble and be meaningless. Perhaps the second-generation seed killed by the child is the beginning of this era. The monk school director said. Now, in addition to the sleeping places of the second-generation seed and the third-generation seed, the Castle Academy is also looking for the sleeping places of the Four Kings of the Dragon race. According to the prophecy, they will wake up before the Black Emperor. Is there any clear news now? Charlotte asked. Even if her pretty face was tense, she couldn't hide her panic. Sitting on the seat of the head of the family at the age of 16, and then catching up with the eve of the end of the world, anyone would feel uneasy. Not yet. The current search area is Nepal, India, and China. The Castle China branch has cooperated with the Orthodox family and is searching in the Qinghai Tibet, Shenanjia, and the Yangtze and Yellow River basins. By the way, this is also the main reason why Castle promotes Chinese education. The directors exchanged glances quietly, but none of them spoke. In addition to external worries, we also have internal troubles to deal with. The Empire Party hybrid organization brought out by the Chicago hospital incident has mastered the black alchemy that can transform ordinary humans into controllable Deadpools, or it may be biotechnology. This evil organization must be eliminated before the kings wake up. In fact, I asked Mingfei to go to Japan to investigate this matter, but I didn't expect that a second-generation species would wake up. Ange leaned back in his chair and crossed his legs comfortably, changing his previous gentlemanly demeanor. Even you can't ask for relevant information, Ange? The old director in a black suit who was obviously on the same front as Frost asked. Since he doesn't want to talk, there's no point in asking. Ange smiled, holding his forehead, but as the MVP of the Sacred Heart Maria Hospital, he should have handled it well. Indeed, I like this guy very much, and I heard that he is a good friend of our Caesar. Although he chopped off the two arms of my dear cousin not long ago. A strange voice came from the sky. The head of the Pompei family applied to join the meeting. Norma's soft female voice suddenly sounded here. Faster than I thought. Connected. Ange waved his hand. The LCD screen changed to a new picture. It was not affected by the battle just now. Then a very handsome blonde face appeared on the screen, smiling, and behind him was a silver-white snowfield. Nice to meet you, Pompei. I thought you would be lying on the beach in Hawaii at this time, with a bunch of bikini girls around you applying oil to you. Ange said lightly. Although it is indeed good to go to Hawaii at this time, I'm now practicing in a temple in Qinghai Tibet. People like you actually know how to practice. Ange was shocked. It's mainly because I heard that there are wonderful spells about dual cultivation here. Pompei Gattuso, the current head of the Gattuso family, looks quite young. Frost looks more like his father than his cousin. This man holds great power in the world of mixed bloods, and his bloodline rating is also top-notch. He should have been a man who created a historical celebrity, but he hates the word responsibility the most. After handing over all power to Frost, he never showed up in formal occasions again, and indulged in fine wine and beautiful women. No woman can resist the appearance and wealth of the head of the Pompei family. The women he likes will automatically roll into his bed in the end. There was even one time when he attended a friend's funeral. The moment before, he was standing in front of the tombstone with a sad look on his face, and the next moment he rode away on a motorcycle with his friend's young and beautiful widow. Hey, these two must be Elizabeth Laurent and Charlotte Gottingham. I didn't expect to see two beauties like this in the school board. It seems I need to attend the next school board meeting. Pompei blew kisses to the two female school directors across the screen, seemingly ignoring the bloody ground under the wreckage of the long table. Now is not the time for you to make friends, Pompei. Angus sighed. Oh yes, I almost forgot about my unlucky cousin. Pompei looked as if he had suddenly realized something, and then his face tightened. Ahem, on behalf of the Gattuso family, I will give up pursuing the matter of student Lumenfei harming the acting school director, and express my deep apologies to him. What? Angus couldn't believe his ears. He was even ready to hold a school board vote to ensure that Lumenfei was not influenced by the Gattuso family, but who would have thought that Pompey would make such an unexpected decision? Frost asked for it. This kid is more irritable than Beowulf. This kind of thing is normal. It's okay that he's not dead. Pompey regained his smiling face, and the serious look in the previous second had disappeared. How does the Chinese say? Oh, yes, peace is the most valuable. At this time, we should join hands and deal with the dragons together. Angus didn't say anything. His sharp eagle-like eyes looked seriously at the carefree Pompey Gattuso on the screen. The Gattuso family never makes gifts without benefits. Sorry. I fell asleep on the table yesterday. It was 11 o'clock when I woke up. Just consider yesterday as a leave. I don't even have the face to post a separate chapter to ask for leave. Chapter 153. Dragon Roar in the Blue Palace. Can we go back now? Apart from the snowy scenery, there is nothing worth spending time on here. Lumenfei knelt under the low eaves and ended his quiet prayer. Don't you want to stay here and chat for a while? Elizabeth is very interested in you now. Angus stepped on the snowflakes on the ground, and the silver Kiski lighter burst into bright flames, lighting the cigar at the corner of his mouth. I'm not interested in her. Lumenfei stood up from the ground, and with an indifferent expression, he inserted the Jinyu greatsword placed aside into the buckle of the windbreaker behind him. Okay, Angus exhaled a puff of smoke helplessly, staring at the heavy snow outside the eaves. Speaking of which, the winter vacation is coming soon. Are you going back to China for the new year? Yes. A certain memory emerged from the depths of Lumenfei's heart. He still owed Shuzhang and that man a promise. It was time to go back and settle accounts with that false god. It sounds like you have something to deal with there. Do you need me to approve your vacation in advance? No, just go with the time. Lumenfei shook his head. The location of the false god Odeon is also in Nibelungen. In this strange realm, he can receive the powerful blessing brought by the Emperor's holy light, and he is fully confident to kill the other party in the form of a saint. Well, get ready after you deal with the things at home. In the next period of time, the frequency of the dragon race's revival will increase dramatically, and we need to destroy them all. Ange said. What will happen next? Will the hybrids become the new aliens? Lumenfei turned his head and stared at Ange with indifferent eyes. I'm not sure. In short, the best result is that after the dragon race is completely slaughtered, the hybrids will continue to live in the world behind the scenes as their monopoly capital. The worst result is that the hybrids eat the corpses of the dragon race and become the new dragon race. Although I say this, you'll kill people, but this is the general trend of history. The dragon slayer will eventually become an evil dragon. Ange's eyes became a little vicissitudes. Even as a pure Avenger, he had explored the future after the disappearance of the dragon race. There is no distinction between the old and the new. Aliens are aliens. The fate of aliens that harm humanity is ultimately destruction. Lumenfei said calmly, with burning golden flames in his eyes, this is the will of the Emperor. Also, don't you really consider Elizabeth? The age difference between you is not that big. As long as you can make her like you, her dowry is the entire Laurent family. Don't go, I haven't finished talking yet. Lumenfei has already walked out from under the eaves, leaving Angus with only a gradually blurred back in the heavy snow. Only the red velvet wrapped around that blade is like a bright red flame, as if foreshadowing that one day in the future, this determination and flame to purify the aliens will burn the entire world. 48 hours after Frost shed blood, in Rome, Italy, the pantheon of the Gattuso family, the King Palace. This is a manor located on the outskirts of Rome. For the entire Italian branch, it is an inviolable place similar to a temple. In ancient Rome, there was indeed a temple on this land, but it collapsed later. The Gattuso family bought the remains of the temple and the surrounding land and rebuilt it into an exquisite manor. The central building uses the columns and part of the walls of the temple. The exterior is extremely simple limestone, but the interior is painted pure dark blue, so it is called the Queen of Blue. A handsome blonde young man stood respectfully at the bottom of the steps. He was wearing a dark green suit and pure white gloves, and he was meticulous. The mirror-like marble floor reflected the bright sunlight, and also illuminated the old faces of the old men sitting at the round table on the steps. They were dressed in white robes and were as solemn as emperors in Roman history. They were all elders of the Gattuso family. It is said that the oldest has lived for nearly 400 years, far exceeding the upper limit of human life. They play a role similar to that of a prophet or a sage in family affairs. Whenever something big happened, the decision-makers of the family would drive to the pantheon to wait for the instructions of their ancestors. 48 hours ago, these elders were not what they are now. They were lying in a cryogenic box made of aluminum alloy. Looking in through the observation window, their bodies were like fossils of ancient trees, pale and scarred, with severe muscle atrophy and dry skin that seemed to be wrapped directly on the surface of the bones. The doctors of the Gattuso family combined modern medicine and witchcraft to invent this method of prolonging life, which is actually a long-term hibernation similar to the tortoise breathing method. Paja Gattuso, the leader among the old people, spoke. His voice was low like thunder. "Where is Frost? The acting head of the family is still recovering from his injuries, so I was specially asked to wake up the elders." The young man named Percy respectfully performed the etiquette of ancient Rome to meet the emperor, and explained the reason for waking them up under the gaze of the elders. The acting head of the family, Frost, had his arms chopped off at the school board meeting, and the perpetrator was the young S-level Lumenfei who single-handedly killed a second-generation species and obtained its dragon bone cross, and had strong strength. The head of the Pompei family far away in Qinghai, Tibet, China, did not pursue the matter, but apologized to the other party. It seems that Anch has found the weapon he likes. The leading old man Alpha whispered to himself. These old men once had their own names, but after moving into the Pantheon, they gave up their original names and only used code names. Percy lowered his head and said nothing, and the air around him fell into a brief silence. The other elders suddenly turned their heads at the same time and stared at Alpha. This scene looked a little weird and scary. The majesty of the Gattuso family cannot be offended, even if Frost is only an acting head of the family. Anger deliberately indulged this child. Is he trying to challenge our bottom line? Maybe he will rush into the Blue Palace next time. Killing the second generation and obtaining the Dragon Bone Cross is a wealth that cannot be ignored. It's time to speed up the launch of the Nibelungen plan. This uncontrollable weapon will do more harm than good to Gattuso in the future. Alpha's mind was full of their discussions, and everyone's voice was fierce and high, like a group of dragons roaring loudly. It's not that they don't need to communicate with each other, but their consciousness is directly connected in some way. They were thinking as if their brains were connected in parallel. This was one of the secrets of the Pantheon. It's time to stop. Alpha ended the argument with an even louder roar. It's not time to divide up the wealth yet. The other elders did not make any more noises. His appearance may mean a new dawn after the doomsday is completely ended, which is exactly what we want to see, a powerful weapon that can quickly end the kings on the throne of the Dragon Clan. Only in this way can we board the ship to the new era before our lives are exhausted, and open a new chapter like Columbus set foot on the new world. But this weapon is always unreliable. The old man Cody named Gamma said. It's not important now, Alpha said. The Gattuso family will make their own weapons. He spoke in a deep voice, as loud as a bell, and the sound surrounded Percy's ears. Just do what Pompey said, and don't worry about Ange's weapon. Also, when Frost is able to handle things, let him speed up the assembly of the Nibelungen project and the Sword of Scourge, and select Caesar Gattuso as the first person for the plan. Follow your will. Percy still didn't dare to raise his head. The Dragon Bone resources needed for the plan start with the Dragon Bone Cross mastered by the S-Class. The next generation Dragon Bone Cross is a precious treasure. Understood. Also follow up with the Orthodox Chen family to determine whether the candidate they selected is qualified. Alpha's tone was very calm from beginning to end. He didn't seem to care about Frost, whose arms were chopped off, and just issued orders to Percy, asking him to pass them on to Frost later. Q. Has Lumenfei become weak? A. No, the cans are not all crazy as you imagine. There are priests who can tell jokes in the Blood Angels. It depends on how the official writers write. This book is Dragon plus Warhammer. In Warhammer, he lives for the Cortos, but in Dragon he is Lumenfei. Q. Since you are so loyal, why don't you hurry back to help Terra? A. I won't spoil it, but I can only say that even if the characters other than the Primarchs return, they will be cannon fodder. Even if they return, they must be reasonable. Moreover, there are still aliens and heretics in their hometown that have not been cleaned up. It is normal for us to focus on the current task before finding a way to go back. Q. Why not kill? A. Kill the Dragon King in one chapter and then go to another world to do infinite flow. There is no plan at all. The world will always be Dragon and Warhammer. Slight spoiler, the poor crying people will come to Earth for a vacation later. Chapter 154 New Year. Happy New Year. Castle Academy welcomed the new year with fireworks and cheers. The young mixed-race elites enjoyed the arrival of 2008 before the final exams. The red lanterns hanging high illuminated the snow on the ground, making the Hallworth School of Magic, which looked like an ancient castle in the mountains, look more like the unique Chinese New Year flavor. Because of the promotion of Chinese education, students are also very interested in the traditional culture of the Chinese Spring Festival, so they decided to celebrate the New Year and the Spring Festival together. After all, the Spring Festival coincides with the winter vacation. All the clubs in the academy posted couplets and peach charms in their headquarters, and even set off firecrackers. The Holy Blood Hall was no exception. Finkel and Lao Tang pulled Xu Zihan, who was practicing hard, out to write couplets. It was really difficult for a German and a Chinese who was used to writing in English to write with a brush. After returning from Portofino, everything seemed to return to peace, and Lu Mingfei continued his practice and study at Castle Academy. Although he didn't attend any practical classes, he didn't miss any classes on aliens, even though that dragon aliens were not a threat compared to the various monsters he had seen in his life. But stay humble and refuse arrogance is Lu Mingfei's attitude. Even if a lion fights a rabbit, it must do its best. The Weepers often send soldiers in a group to the Death Watch Regiment for further study. For a special regiment specializing in anti-alien, they urgently need soldiers like the Weepers who have been wandering on the edge of the galaxy all year round and fighting various aliens such as the green-skinned Tyranids. Because of the close connection between the Death Watch and the Inquisition, they will accept the Weepers even if they are in the Atonement expedition. The regiment leader also hopes to send more soldiers over. He is worried that one day the regiment will be swallowed up by the darkness and enemies of the galaxy, and it is a good thing to leave a few bloodliners for the Weepers regiment. Thinking of this, Lu Mingfei's heart was inevitably covered with a shadow. I don't know if the brothers of the regiment are still safe in that dark galaxy, whether they can get time to recuperate after the end of the Atonement expedition. Under the night sky, the bright fireworks are blooming, and Lu Mingfei walks out of the closed library with a pile of books. These are alchemy books prepared for the alchemy sergeant Lao Tang. Recently, he has given priority to the conceptual weapons in the 7 kingdoms of alchemy according to Lu Mingfei's needs, preparing for the plan of mass production of alchemy armor in the future. The Weeping Angels Regiment also washed in the first batch of new members, all of whom are elites from the Kendo department who have carefully studied swordsmanship. They are currently being trained by Xu Zihan to test their combat qualities in preparation for the first Dream Taper trial for the Source Girl. Everything is going in a good direction. Do you need a ride? I just happened to be going back to the Yamba Pavilion. A Bargati Viran slowly drove over, and the handsome blonde gentleman smiled and invited Lu Mingfei. No, this distance is not very far, I will walk back directly. Lu Mingfei politely declined Caesar's kindness. I guess you would say that. Caesar turned off the engine very straightforwardly, got out of the car and followed Lu Mingfei. He left the Bargati Viran on the side of the road without even taking out the car keys. I just heard about what happened in the school board meeting a few hours ago. You're really not nice, S-class. Caesar said with a teasing smile on his face, you didn't tell me such an interesting thing. I really want to see my uncle get humiliated. Uncle. Lu Mingfei was stunned at first, then he remembered who Caesar was talking about. Frost Gattuso is your uncle. In terms of blood relationship, yes. But I never think that he and the Gattuso family are that good. Caesar raised his eyebrows and disapproved, so even if you cut off his hand in front of me, I will only applaud and ask you to cut off the 5 limbs of my bastard father at the same time. Do you hate them? Of course. The fireworks blooming in the night sky illuminated Caesar's profile, from the moment they held a thank you party after my mother's funeral. In their opinion, it was an honor for my mother, with such a lowly surname, to give birth to a child of precious blood for the Gattuso family. They hypocritically held a grand funeral for my mother, presided over by the Pope himself. But afterwards they held a thank you party, everyone was drinking champagne with a glass in their hands, talking and laughing, as if this matter was worth celebrating. Then I rushed in with a bucket of gasoline and lit a fire. Lu Mingfei couldn't comment on this. The concept of mother was already very vague in his mind, including the memory of his mother Kawani in this world. This is still a whaler whose emotions and rationality have been largely retained. So Master T's, after undergoing surgery and spiritual baptism, are so cold that even if their biological mother is trampled to death in front of them, they will smile and sigh that the emotions of mortals are really boring. I'm sorry to tell you a not so good story. Caesar calmed down. But no matter what, you made me welcome the new year in a very happy mood, so I owe you a favor. Is there anything you want? As long as it's not a tank or a warship, I can get it for you. Not for now. Mingfei shook his head. Okay, if you need any help, you can contact me. Caesar seemed to be in a good mood. But then he seemed to remember something, and his expression became a little helpless. Can you tell me how Shuzaham usually trains? Maybe I've been busy with the student union's affairs during this period, and I've been a little stressed in the cold weapon combat courses during this period. To be honest, I feel that if I can't even beat Shuzaham, let alone challenge you. Faith, exercise, and fight. Mingfei answered concisely. As for faith, I am half Catholic, because of Gattuso's family letter. Exercise, well, I have indeed neglected exercise during this period. Caesar said unwillingly, but I have been fully present in the recent simulated combat classes, and my grades are pretty good, but I just feel that there is a big gap between me and Shuzaham. Most of the combat courses at Castle Academy are modern military simulation training. The instructors are retired members of the Navy SEALs and Delta Forces, and the students are divided into two parts for simulated confrontation. Caesar is the leader of this course. He is an excellent commander. Under his leadership, his team can always complete the task with the least damage and at fastest speed, and hit the highest score in the simulated combat course. But he just feels that there is a gap between him and Shuzaham, especially after the other party came back from Japan. This gap has been getting bigger and bigger. Simulated combat course. Mingfei remembered the combat simulation course offered by the Academy. He took a look and went back. The intensity is relatively low. If you want to hone yourself, you have to face a real life and death battle, he said. Castle doesn't seem to have set up this course. You can consider joining our Weeping Angels. We have special training just to hone true warriors. Mingfei said seriously. Then I may have to wait for someone from the student union to overthrow my position. Caesar was very helpless. In the exchange of words, the two walked all the way to the Holy Blood Hall. On the way, they also met many students who were setting off fireworks. They were very interested in the scene that the student union president did not attend the student union New Year's Eve ball, but worked with the S-level at night. Some people secretly took photos and uploaded them to the Night Watcher forum, which inevitably caused the girls to chatter. We can communicate more when we have time. I'm now preparing a plan called Freedom Day to see if it can pass the application of the principle. Caesar said with a smile. Okay. Mingfei nodded, and the two said goodbye. The captain is back. Captain Lu. Finger and Lao Tang, who had just posted the couplets at the entrance of the hall, waved to Mingfei enthusiastically. Brother, this is for you. Mingfei glanced at the couplet at the door, and after confirming that there was nothing strange written on it and that the handwriting was neat, he stuffed the pile of alchemy books he was holding into Old Tang's arms. Emperor, this is too much. Old Tang's face drooped all of a sudden. He had finally rested for 2 days, and now he had to endure the pain of alchemy again. But this kind of pain was more like the pain of a teacher correcting homework. The knowledge in these alchemy books was completely different from what he had in his mind. He had to write the correct spells while reading them. As for where the alchemy knowledge in his mind came from, Old Tang hadn't thought about it in detail. Instead of pursuing this, he might as well finish it quickly and then run to play StarCraft and Call of Duty happily with Finger, or go to the student union to appreciate the beautiful demeanor of the white silk girls in the ballet girl group. First, apply the knowledge of conceptual armament as soon as possible, and then prepare to practice alchemy equipment. There is a set of equipment in the equipment department that may need you to optimize it in the future. Mingfei patted Old Tang on the shoulder to show encouragement. But I haven't awakened my superpowers yet. Oh no, it's the word spirit. Old Tang was holding a pile of alchemy books, looking a little dejected. There's no rush for this, we can take our time. By the way, the academy will be on vacation soon. Do you want to go somewhere? Mingfei asked. Old Tang thought about it for a while, then his head drooped like a deflated ball. No, I'm an orphan, I don't have a father or a mother, the dogs on the roadside will bark at me when they see me, there's nothing good to go. It's at least more comfortable to stay here. By the way, the canteen should provide meals, right? Oh, my poor brother, if you don't mind, you can come back to Germany with me, I'll take you to appreciate the beautiful customs of my hometown. Finger gave him a hug with a weird translation tone and a look of pity. Really? Old Tang's eyes lit up. But there's no internet in my country. If you want to play StarCraft, you have to ride a horse to a town 40 miles away. Forget it. Chapter 155 Cold Weapon Class. On the 4th day after the New Year, the Holy Blood Hall received an invitation letter from Caesar Gattuso. I'm not interested in his balls and cocktail parties. The sound of blades clashing continued, as if a passionate march was being performed. Mingfei and Yuan Xin, each holding a sword made by the equipment department, fought fiercely in the center of the hall. In the huge painting hanging on the wall, the holy and noble angels were watching the two rapidly flashing figures. Although she is a redeemer, Yuan Xin's strength cannot be ignored. As a very evil ghost, his bloodline belongs to the emperor level among the mixed blood species, but because of Yuan Xin's personality restrictions, the ghost's strength has not been fully exerted. It's not a dance. He wants to invite you to attend tomorrow's cold weapon practical class. Shuzaham simply glanced at the invitation letter, and the student union member who was responsible for delivering the invitation letter beside him was already dumbfounded. Clang! Dazzling sparks flew, and the sparring ended with Yuan Xin's blade being knocked away. Yuan Xin fell to the ground, her pretty face, as delicate as a girl, flushed red, and she was panting. The golden light in his eyes was gradually fading. He had indeed exhausted all his strength. Tomorrow's practical class? Is there any special meaning? Mingfei put away his sword and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. His exposed skin was red as fire, and white steam was visible to the naked eye. After a moment, accompanied by the crackling of bones in his body recovered as before. I don't know, or just refuse. Shuzaham said. Now even he began to choose to skip some meaningless practical classes, and save time to practice directly with Yuan Xin, the actual combat in reality and the trial of hunting the assassin in Dream Taper. Just go. Mingfei thought about it carefully and decided to agree to go and take a look. Caesar gave him a good impression. Okay, I'll go with you tomorrow. Shuzaham walked into the arena, picked up the longsword dropped by the Source Girl, and began to warm up. The swordsmanship of the Blood Angels is unique to Astartes, and it cannot be mastered without strong physical fitness. Even if Shuzaham wants to practice the tricks taught by Mingfei, he needs to use blood violence to forcibly increase the strength of the body. In short, no matter what, as long as the swordsmanship can kill the enemy, it is good swordsmanship. In addition, several new members who have just joined the Weeping Angels Club must also accept the test of the bolt gun. The ferocious recoil of the .70 caliber finger gun is not something that everyone can control. And unless Mingfei speaks up, the crazy people in the equipment department will only try to make this guy more fierce and cool instead of optimizing the recoil. Mingfei estimated that he should be able to form a new recruit reconnaissance team in March, and wait until the freshman season in August to absorb a wave of potential fresh blood. The time came to 10 o'clock in the morning of the next day. Shuzaham brought Mingfei to a gym next to the Hall of Heroes. When they arrived, this spacious classroom with the style of a youth palace condo gym was already full. Mingfei's arrival caused a commotion. Who would have thought that this S-level who had missed the entire semester would visit before the end of the semester? There are a lot of people, mostly from the student union. Shuzaham glanced at the students in the gym and whispered. I'll go find Caesar and ask what's going on. Mingfei caught Caesar Gattuso in the crowd at a glance and walked straight over. I thought you wouldn't come. Fortunately, I have enough confidence when you come. Caesar smiled and greeted Mingfei. Let me take this class, is there anything special? Mingfei briefly recalled the content of this course. The lecturers were also the retired Special Forces members of the school's work department, teaching grappling, cold weapon fighting, etc. He naturally didn't need to learn these basics, but other hybrids in this academy did. Laying these foundations well would allow them to further develop the advantages of hybrids in the future. Because of their dragon bloodline, hybrids are naturally more athletic and reactive than ordinary people. Mingfei remembered that one day, old Tang wanted to have a pleasant practice with a few pretty girls with a basketball, and then the girl who danced beautifully in white silk he mentioned almost scared him silly with a random bullfight block. I want to ask you for a favor, okay? Caesar leaned close to Mingfei and lowered his voice. Of course I hope I don't need you to do it. Just to be frank, I personally don't like guessing riddles. Mingfei sighed lightly. Do you remember what I told you a few days ago? Before Caesar finished speaking, he was interrupted by a more restless exclamation. A figure stepped onto the wooden floor of the gym. It was an old man with the temperament of an old gentleman, with grey hair and a kind demeanor, but the muscles that bulged out his suit told people that this old man was not simple at all. It's the principal. The students cried out in surprise, and some girls even covered their mouths to avoid screaming. It's rare for me to come back to the academy, and I just happened to catch up with the last cold weapon practical class before the end of the semester. On a whim, I decided to substitute for my dear students. Hilbert G. Nange took off his suit jacket with a smile. You don't seem to welcome me very much. The students shook their heads in unison, scrambling to speak out their defense, and quickly found their seats and sat down obediently, looking forward to what kind of class Ange would bring them today. His reputation in the academy is unmatched. All students, professors, and department leaders respect him very much. Even the most difficult equipment department second-year students are impressed by Ange. Is this why you invited me here? Lumenfei tilted his head slightly. He was also a little surprised by Ange's arrival. When he was in Japan, he had heard about the history of Ange defeating all the masters of the 8 snakes at the time and asking them to sign a contract to establish a Japanese branch. How could he be called the most powerful avenger of the secret party without any skills? Yes, I received a rumor in advance that the principal will come to take this class. The application for the free-day activity that I submitted a few days ago was returned. The principal replied that if anyone can satisfy him in today's Kendo class, he will agree to this application. Free day. What is that activity? It's a free competition similar to real-life CS. The students are divided into 2 sides and start a gun battle until only one person is left standing. How about it? Doesn't it sound exciting? Caesar's blue eyes like the ocean were full of excitement. Not bad. Lumenfei thought that if he really wanted to do this, he might as well come to the Holy Blood Hall. His memory dream of the planet Sotis would be the best battlefield. The problem is that if there are too many people together, Yuan Xin can't handle it. His dream taper field can only affect 3 people at the same time at most. So you want me to play? Yes, you should be the only one in the academy who can compete with the principal head-on. Caesar smiled and patted Lumenfei's shoulder, but let me play first when the time comes. It's not my style to retreat because of fear of failure. Fight with Ange. Lumenfei was interested. He also wanted to know the strength of this old warrior. He had faced a Dragon King level alien and survived. Then he had another idea. If there was a chance, he would take Ange to the Holy Blood Museum and use the words of the Source Girl to enter the memory again to see how strong the Dragon King level alien was. The Taikai swordsmanship of Wudong in China, the cavalry swordsmanship of the Cossacks, the bear claw assassination technique of Russia. There are many excellent cold weapon tactics with a long history in the world, but this class is only 50 minutes, so I will talk about the Japanese swordsmanship that I am more proficient in. Ange began his own teaching. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed the bamboo sword for practice, and his whole body naturally changed to the starting position of the Japanese swordsmanship middle section holding the sword. The nearly 4-foot-long bamboo sword was held in Ange's hand like a real sharp killing weapon. Every movement was full of a strong sense of power. Many students subconsciously stepped back, as if Ange was about to step up and swing the swords the next moment. He is indeed a warrior. Lumenfei nodded. The title of the strongest hybrid is not in vain. Japanese Kendo also has a long history. The emphasis of Kendo lies in the fundamentals. The steps, postures, and moves cannot be mastered overnight. In these short 50 minutes, I will only teach you a basic technique and a Kendo theory. The students stood up from the ground and stood 2 meters apart. They imitated Ange's posture, holding the practice bamboo sword and posing the middle section knife holding starting action. Relax your shoulders, and the hidden power accumulates in the right foot before stepping forward. The palm of the hand holding the knife is in the middle. Ange walked down with the sword, and corrected the students' movements and postures one by one from the first row. Shuzaham naturally integrated into the course. He had studied the basics of Kendo in the Children's Palace. Japanese swordsmanship and Ki family swordsmanship were also tempered in the battles against people and Deadpool. Ange nodded in appreciation when his eyes swept over him. When he glanced at Lumenfei, Ange's eyes slightly raised, as if he had not expected Lumenfei to come here for class. But when he saw Caesar beside Lumenfei, he seemed to understand something, shook his head helplessly and smiled, correcting Caesar's non-standard movements. As for Lumenfei, he didn't need to think about any other postures and steps, which had become instinctive in 100 years of fighting. Even if it was a sword move of different styles, Lumenfei could show a perfect prelude to killing with just one look. After a circle, Angus returned to the original teaching position and signaled the students to put down the bamboo swords. After this move, the changes can be changed freely, whether it is raising the sword and stepping, or swaying and slashing, or reverse cassock, etc. and the coherent use of sword moves is equally important. The relevant Kendo courses will be opened in the next semester, so I won't talk about it here. Who can tell me next, what is the most important thing in a one-on-one confrontation with cold weapons? Preemptive strike. Caesar raised his hand immediately. Everyone's eyes were on Caesar, and at the same time, they looked at Mingfei beside him. The most low-key S-class and the recently popular student union president together, it is easy for people to have some reverie. Step out. Angus raised his eyebrows. Caesar grabbed the bamboo sword and walked out of the path separated for him by the students, his deep blue eyes filled with a challenge. Caesar Gattuso, our youngest student union president, a rarer class bloodliner. Angus rolled up his sleeves, and the bamboo sword in his hand drew an elegant sword arc. Your answer is correct. In a one-on-one confrontation, whoever can take the initiative will have the opportunity to win the battle. Then you draw your sword first. He made a starting gesture. The students exclaimed, and the students in the front row immediately stepped back, leaving enough space for the two. Please teach me, Principal. Caesar took a deep breath and his expression became serious. He did not use the sword-do starting posture that he had just taught, but held the bamboo sword down and fought with his own skill-polished cavalry swordsmanship. He stared at the smiling Ange with full concentration. His mind was working rapidly, calculating at what angle, what strength, and what moves to cut the next attack. About 10 seconds later, Caesar suddenly stepped forward and charged, like an arrow from a bow, the bamboo sword unsheathed in his hand and rotated in a dazzling sword dance. The students could not even see the speed of Caesar's burst, let alone the intention of the erratic sword dance. The sword dance lasted less than half a second, and the nearly 4-foot-long bamboo sword completed the angle of the sword dance and chopped Ange's waist in a tricky position. The opponent was Hilbert Jean Ange. Even if it was just a practice, it was worth everyone present to go all out. He was a living legend among the mixed bloods. Pa. With a clear sound, before everyone understood what was going on, Caesar's bamboo sword in his right hand had been knocked away. Ange's steps did not move at all, but the bamboo sword in his hand had already drawn an oblique arc of the posture slash. But Caesar's sprint did not stop, and his movements did not stagnate at all. He was less than half a meter away from Ange. He leaned down like a cheetah hunting, and with his left hand, he pulled out a second bamboo sword that was shorter than the previous one from his arms and stabbed it into Ange's heart. This is the assassination knife technique of the assassins. Assassins often hide their weapons on their bodies and never show the sharpness of their weapons until they kill someone. The assassination technique named after the assassin naturally exists only for that fatal knife. Everything before that is for this knife. The students exclaimed. If it were them, they would definitely chase after the opponent because they had defeated the opponent's weapon, and then their lives would be ended by the fatal knife. Pa. Another clear sound. Caesar's long-planned assassination stabbed in the air. Ange was already standing beside him, holding a bamboo sword and maintaining the downward slashing action, and the bamboo sword landed on Caesar's golden head. The students of the gym exclaimed, everything happened too fast, making them a little dazzled. The last one to strike is the first one to arrive. Angus moved the bamboo sword away from Caesar's golden hair. It's right to pursue the initiative in battle, but we can be one step ahead of him, see through the opponent's intention at the moment when the opponent raises the sword or steps forward, and then attack the opponent's vital point first. But at this moment, the last one to strike requires observation, prediction of precursors, summary and judgment of combat experience, and personal instinct to fight for. Caesar's performance is very good. His hidden sword is enough to win a complete victory in the battle with a powerful opponent. Angus smiled and helped Caesar up with a helpless look on his face. But it's a pity that my reaction speed is a little faster. Thunderous applause rang out in the gym. The students clapped their hands for Caesar's wonderful performance and the principal's strength. Is there anyone else who wants to come forward and try it? Angus said with a smile, but his eyes passed through the students in the front row who raised their hands excitedly and fell directly on Mingfei with a calm face. Chapter 156 S-Level Showdown. In the minds of students, Ange is a living legend. Even if they know they will fail, it still can't stop them from wanting to challenge this legend. If it were normal, Ange might select a few good seedlings for a friendly practical teaching, but now there is a more eye-catching existence among the students. Mingfei, are you interested in coming up and trying a few games with me? He said with a smile. As soon as this name came out, everyone's eyes were instantly on Mingfei. They retracted their arms and took the initiative to make way for this calm boy, with excitement and expectation. Most of the freshmen present had their original 3 views shattered in half a year of courses and practice. The vision of getting a good diploma and getting a good job on Wall Street has become a grand mission to save the fate of mankind from the claws of the Dragon Clan. They are also gradually influenced by the atmosphere of Castle College. Just like the Art College specializes in music, chess, calligraphy and painting, the Finance College regulates stocks and securities, and the Dragon-slaying College naturally aims at force and dominance. Even Caesar Gattuso, who seems to be a rich playboy, has strong force support. The S-class hybrid that only appears once every few decades and is only circulated in book stories is undoubtedly the focus of the whole thing. It is Siegfried who is destined to fight the dragon. And before he appeared, Principal Ange was also the only S-class in the academy. A living legend, a rising star who can split an armored vehicle. The swordsmanship exchange between 2 generations of S-class is quite exciting just to listen to. Okay. Mingfei nodded lightly and walked straight out of the crowd. If you say that Ange doesn't want to understand himself, it's a lie. Both of them have their own secrets, but they naturally don't explore them deeply, and as warriors, the best way for them to understand each other is undoubtedly to have a good fight. Ange stared at Mingfei with a smile on his face, with a blazing fire of challenge in his eyes. This is a sharp blade that can kill the next generation. It's worth it for him to be a whetstone to experience the other party's bloody coldness. Principal, why are you taking off your clothes? It's not appropriate to act like this in front of a girl, Caesar asked softly as he watched Angus unbutton his suit shirt one by one with a smile. But soon, he swallowed the word gentleman that he couldn't say out loud. Not only him, but also the students in the gym, couldn't help but gasp after seeing the principal's exposed upper body. From the tattoos revealed by the principal's rolled-up sleeves just now, many students guessed that the principal had tattoos, but they never thought that this tattoo would cover his back. It was a complete painting. What was revealed on the wrist before was a ferocious tiger head and yaksha, but this was only a part of the tattoo. Behind that principal, there were countless yakshas and countless tigers fighting in the fire cloud. It was a war between the Yaksha Kingdom and the Tiger Kingdom. As Ange moved his shoulders and stretched his muscles, the cinnabar red yaksha and the indigo-colored tiger seemed to come alive. They grabbed each other's throats, bit each other with sharp teeth, and struck with hammers with lightning. The killing intent was vividly portrayed. It was a scroll that only the devil in hell could draw, which condensed the ferocity of the whole world and tattooed it on a person's back. If Genji was here, she might recognize this Rage of the Worlds, which is the highest level tattoo in the Japanese underworld. No one would have thought that an old gentleman who graduated from Cambridge University would have a tattoo of the highest level of the underworld. This suit and shirt is a masterpiece of the French Winter Fashion Week. I prefer to wear it to attend banquets rather than fight. Ange smiled and threw away the shirt, but his whole momentum had changed. The respected and kind educator had disappeared, replaced by a lonely warrior standing in a sea of blood with blood all over his body. The lion and tiger heart hidden under the exquisite suit was completely agitated. He silently crossed the torrent of time, played thousands of different people, watched those who had fought side by side with him or drank with him die silently, walked alone without any worries, and lived only for revenge. Looking at Ange, Mingfei couldn't help but recall those who had sacrificed one after another in front of him, whether they were fighting brothers, fighting slaves, or even mortals who were willing to stay and wait for death because they didn't want to be dragged down by their physical defects during the rescue, but he never had time to stop. He had to lead other fighting brothers to move forward continuously, fighting to protect mankind in this dark galaxy. Regardless of the battlefield or identity, Ange is indeed a respectable warrior. Don't play too hard in front of the students. Fixed point rules? Ange said with a smile. Mingfei nodded. Don't use the word spirit and other powers, just compete in physical skills and swordsmanship. In Finkel's words, the principal's word spirit time. Zero is the kind that specializes in PvP, and belongs to a different category from Shuzahang's Junyan used to clear monsters. If Ange wants to use the word spirit, then he also needs to use spiritual energy and the blessing of holy light. That's what I mean. Ange picked up another bamboo sword. He is the highest level Menkyo Kaiden of the Nagni school founded by Miyamoto Musashi. He has passed the Juban trial and may be one of the strongest kendo masters in Japan today. The students in the gym were silent. They were completely shocked by the breath exuded by Ange. They held their breath and dared not breathe. Is this the true side of the principal facing the Dragon Clan? And Mingfei, this S-level student in the same class as them, can actually be treated so solemnly by the principal. Caesar, please push the cart with bamboo swords over. Ange said to Caesar, who looked normal behind him. This batch of bamboo swords for practice is made of Chinese laurel bamboo that is more than 5 years old. It is baked for 15 days, and then selected, weighted, corrected, planed and polished to get perfect bamboo pieces. It is then wrapped with fine cowhide and nylon rope to make it very tough. Anger's turned to 2 swords. After this class, the school affairs department may have to purchase new ones. The bodies of those aliens are very hard. Unless the weapons themselves are good enough, it is impossible to kill those aliens with Japanese swordsmanship alone. Mingfei also held a bamboo sword, adjusted his breath while talking, and quickly entered the state of sparring with Minamoto Kaiyo on weekdays. The Deadpools killed in Japan have extremely tough scales and bodies. Putting aside alchemical weapons like Murazame, the fragile quality of ordinary Japanese swords is difficult to cause effective damage to these things. The main purpose of learning Japanese Kendo in the first year is to lay that foundation and specialize in the exquisite sword against people. In the second and third years, there will be practical courses on heavy weapons such as Roman two-handed swords. Angers said. Caesar pushed a cart full of green and yellow bamboo swords to the back of Angers. Seeing this, Shuzaham also quickly walked out of the crowd and pushed the cart from the corner of the dojo. Let's start, Principal. Mingfei leaned over slightly, holding the bamboo sword tightly in his hand, staring at the old man in front of him. Okay. Just as Anger's voice fell, the figures of the two disappeared instantly, leaving only the sound of the wooden floor being trampled and the crisp sound of the bamboo sword breaking. What followed was the evil wind that rushed in all directions. Every student felt suffocated in front of this extreme speed, and retreated subconsciously in fear. Sword. Sword. Anger's and Mingfei's voices sounded almost at the same time, and Caesar and Shuzaham immediately threw out the bamboo swords they were holding tightly in their hands. The figures of the two people who were fighting reappeared, steadily caught the bamboo swords thrown from behind them, and fought again. Compared to the previous speed at which the figures disappeared, their speed was a little slower, but it was still too slow to lock eyes. The bamboo swords used for practice seemed to have turned into sharp blades in their hands, and the green shadows that passed by were like the light of stars and moons, illuminating their eyes and making their backs cold. Sword. Sword. The old bamboo sword broke and fell, and the new bamboo sword caught it and fought again. There was no need to explain what moves or schools were in the fight between the two. Everything had been integrated into their body instincts, and every sword was an extremely sharp killing move. Angers did not use the spirit of words, and Mingfei did not use the prophecy spirit. Their fight was completely a competition of the quality of the dragon blood body and the accumulation of combat experience. Without any more reminders, Shuzaham relied on his eyesight and Caesar relied on his hearing. Both of them threw a new round of bamboo swords in time to replace the weapons of the two warriors who were concentrating on the battle. It's already 4 times faster than normal. Very good. Anger's skin turned red. He had entered a blood-blasting state without realizing it. The refined dragon blood was boiling in his body. His cells regained vitality. He was greedily breathing in the fresh air. The power flowed along his bones like water. He was completely at a disadvantage. Mingfei's aggressive and vicious attacks made him breathless. His Nabnitri didn't even have a chance to attack. If it was a real sword, his heart would have been pierced at least 3 times. Mingfei also knew that he had a complete advantage. Psychologically, the two were of the same age, but his combat experience was definitely far more than Anger's countless times. And physically, his 17-year-old young body, which was doubly strengthened by the alien bloodline and the Emperor's holy light, was naturally superior to Anger's body of more than 130 years old. Even people at the same age with dragon blood, most of them spent the rest of their lives sitting in wheelchairs or lying in beds, not to mention ordinary people without blood, who may be suffering from illness and baldness in their 30s or 40s. However, Anger was able to fight the aliens on the battlefield driven by the fire of revenge. It was admirable. A piercing scream sounded in the air, and a black shadow was rapidly approaching Ange. Snap. In a few tenths of a second, Mingfei and Ange passed by each other, as if they had exchanged positions. Caesar only felt a gust of wind blowing in front of him. When he came to his senses again, Mingfei's calm face was reflected in his deep blue eyes. The bamboo sword in his hand was broken, with dense burrs on the broken edge, and the tear marks of the nylon rope and cowhide were clearly visible. This kind of bamboo sword is used as a sparring weapon because of its strong toughness. It will not cause much damage when hitting. When it is swung with strong force, it will only bend and crack but not break. However, in the confrontation between the two S-levels just now, these broken bamboo swords can be seen everywhere on the ground of the gym. Ange still maintained a horizontal block with one sword and a counter-attack with the other sword. However, the bamboo sword he used for horizontal blocking has been broken, and there is a striking deep red mark on his chest. If you don't look closely, it is difficult to distinguish this mark from Ange's red body, but he himself has experienced this fiery blow. If it was the Jinyu, his heart should have been cut off along with his body, right? With such extreme speed and sharpness, anyone who is in the same room with this child is like sitting on his blade, and life and death are all in his mind. A certain hand jab heir who lost his head and Frost who broke his arm are very convincing. As expected of a blade that has killed the next generation. Have you fully stimulated his bloodline and talent? And whispered to someone in his heart. He stood up and threw away the bamboo sword in his hand. A helpless smile appeared on his face. It seems that I have said too much. These bamboo swords can still be used for a while. Thank you, Principal Ram. Mingfei turned around and bowed slightly. He did not intend to lose on purpose. The most basic respect for a warrior is to go all out. Until now, except for Shuzahang and Caesar, no one else in the gym has even recovered. This is a battle beyond their vision. From beginning to end, even if they tried to open their eyes wide, they could not see clearly the movements of them swinging bamboo swords. Although I want to say that the disciple is better than the master, I obviously haven't taught you anything. Ange looked at the admiration and doting in Mingfei's eyes without disguising. It seems that I can retire early and rest assured to hand over the new era's dragon-slaying sword to you. You are joking, Principal Ange. Mingfei stared at Ange. You are the kind of warrior who will not lay down your weapons until the enemy is completely purified. Ange was stunned, then smiled with relief. Mingfei, are you really only 17 years old? Someone applauded, first Shuzahang, then Caesar. Their applause let the crowd, like a loud bell that deafened the crowd. The gym rang with applause like a tide, and the students clapped their palms red with excitement to dedicate to the wonderful duel brought by these two S-levels. Although no one could see clearly, there is no doubt that the winner of this duel is Mingfei. No one could have expected such a result. It was the first time they saw the principal take off his clothes and looked like he was ready to fight with all his strength. My mental age is 132 years old. Mingfei said seriously. Angus laughed and patted Mingfei's shoulder gently. It would be nice if my physical age was 17 years old like you. Chapter 157. Dragon's Return. It has been nearly a week since the S-Class duel with cold weapons, but the discussion about Principal Ange and S-Class Mingfei in the Night Watch forum is still hot. During this period, several photos have been uploaded to the forum like crazy. Among them, the most popular and downloaded photos are the photos of Principal Ange taking off his shirt to show his muscles and tattoos. The shooting angle is also perfect. Obviously, there are photography enthusiasts among the students in the class. The challenging smile on his handsome but still handsome side face made the boys and girls in the whole college crazy. Overnight, countless people's computer and mobile phone wallpapers of this photo. How can an old man be so handsome? The video of the confrontation between the two S-classes was pinned to the top of the forum, but because the only device for shooting was a mobile phone and the mobile phone frame rate was obviously not high, the video showed a sense of frame extraction and discontinuity. Students could only see the blurred figures that could not be connected between the two, and they could not get to know anything. Then, the following are the eye-catching news headlines of the news department. Heavy. Passionate confrontation between the new and old S-Class Castle's strongest S-Class legend and the fierce tiger. Mingfei debuted today. Shocking. The reason why the S-Class is called S-Class is actually Gouter. What level has the strength of the new S reached? Can he really face the Dragon King? Absolutely. Yeah. Even near the end of the semester, students still enjoy surfing the forum intensively. Some are analyzing the movement speed of Mingfei and Ange when they fight, and some are discussing whether the result will be different if both use the word spirit. The principal's Time Zero is the strongest PvP skill in the current word spirit cycle table. Some new fans of Mingfei are not sure, because no one knows what the new S-Class word spirit is, but there is no doubt that the strength of Mingfei, an S-Class hybrid, is completely recognized by everyone. If everyone did not have a specific understanding of the S-Class when school started, now they have completely realized how big the gap between the S-Class and them is. The retired special forces who were in charge of teaching practical classes in various subjects originally thought, he didn't come to class for a semester, even if he is S-level, I will be ruthless and impartial. However, after seeing the video, they got up at night to change Lumenfei's GPA. They finally realized that S-level didn't come to class because he was worried that he would accidentally beat them to death during class. Then came the Weeping Angels. Many people turned their attention to this club organization with a somewhat immature name established by S-level himself. Its fame was originally overshadowed by the Student Union and the Linhart Club, but now it has reappeared with the blooming of Lumenfei. However, the conditions for joining have become more stringent. From the beginning, even guys like Fingal can join to being personally reviewed by the Cold-Faced Swordsman, a nickname given by some of Shuzaham's fans. So far, the only ones who have officially become the scout recruits of the Weeping Angels, a lurk who did not want to be named pointed out that S-level called them this way, of the dozen guys in the Kendo Club who were devoted to swordsmanship. They were already impressed by the sword that S-level used to split the armor of Virgil earlier. However, a few days ago, these new recruits were carried out of the Holy Blood Hall one after another and sent to the school medical department and then transferred to the psychology department. The specific reason is unknown. The psychological counselor Masashi Toyama, who was originally idle, has been busy for a long time. In any case, Castle College ended its academic year at the top of the wave. With the end of the final exams, many students have packed their bags and are preparing to go back to their hometowns to spend the winter vacation. Lumenfei and Shuzaham are also packing their bags, but they are all packing weapons. Your hometown custom of visiting relatives during the new year is to use explosive bombs, right? You use this thing to shoot when you meet? Are you really going back to celebrate the new year instead of having a fight, which means fighting in Cantonese? Old Tang complained on the side. During this period, he has heard a lot of gunshots from this weapon that made his ears hurt. Ordinary people would definitely be blown to pieces if they were hit by this thing. Go back to the new year and start a film? Shuzaham said expressionlessly. Besides, the Chinese branch of Castle is not like the Japanese branch. It is simply a simple recruitment organization and a supply point for executive department specialists. Some aspects cannot be easily involved. So I'm afraid the grenade guns can't be shipped back. Okay. What about the sword? The sword should be okay, right? Yes, Jinlu and Murazame can both be shipped back to China as handicrafts. The address is the address of the branch. That's enough. Lumenfei simply took down the metal storage box full of explosives, and there were 2 grenade guns painted with the Holy Blood logo. Then during my absence, the Holy Blood Museum will be handed over to you and Yuan Xin. Lumenfei patted Lao Tang on the shoulder. Although the Dragon Bone Cross in the underground storage room of the Holy Blood Museum has not yet revealed that it belongs to the White Emperor, it is still a treasure to be labeled as second-generation Dragon Bone. Good things are known to others, so people have to look at them. A few days ago, And took him to visit the ice cellar, which is where Castle College stores various alchemical items and collections. And kept introducing to him how perfect the security here is, how high the confidentiality level is, and how many people in the entire college have the right to enter the ice cellar on one hand. The implication is that he hopes he can put the Dragon Bone Cross in the ice cellar for preservation. Lumenfei politely refused. It's not that he doesn't trust Fingal's wetware girlfriend, but human supervision is definitely more reliable than electronic supervision. I asked in advance. The canteen will still provide meals during the holidays. Not all students and professors will leave the college. Shuzaham said in advance what Lao Tang was concerned about. That's good, as long as there is food to eat. Lao Tang smiled. Lumenfei's card limit is very high, so he can eat whatever he wants. We will probably come back as soon as we finish dealing with things, or maybe we will come back after the Chinese New Year. Don't focus on playing games during this period, study alchemy more, and invest in arming as soon as possible. Lumenfei advised. Don't worry, Captain. I haven't fallen behind in alchemy at all. I think I can start the experiment of conceptual armament when you come back. Oh, why haven't I awakened my superpowers yet? Amid the intentional and unintentional gazes, Old Tang drove the weeping car of the Weeping Angels, which was painted with red hearts, blood drops and wings, and watched Lumenfei and Shuzaham get on the CC-1000 express train and leave Castle College. In the eyes of others, these 2 mixed-blood rising stars from the same city simply went home to spend the joyous winter vacation and spring festival. But for them, this return home was to settle an unfinished grudge and a man's promise. Chapter 158 Winter Rain. The Boeing passenger plane rushed out of the dark clouds like a huge white migratory bird, its white wings cutting through the rain curtain. Even the howling wind could not make this giant tremble at all. The wings and fuselage seem to be welded together, flying steadily in the wind and rain. You can see the dense and winding water outside the porthole. The weather forecast is not very accurate again. The sky that should have been cloudy has a cold winter rain. At this height, you can already see the bustling lights of the city below. Although it is not as big as the huge urban circle of Tokyo, this coastal city is also developing its economy steadily at its own pace. The Boeing passenger plane landed smoothly on the airport runway. The maintenance personnel in the rain drove the registration ladder. When you walk out of the cabin door, you can smell the familiar smell of rain in your hometown city. It's raining again. Mingfei said lightly. Yeah. Shuzaham nodded solemnly. They don't like rain very much, but they are waiting for the day when the rainstorm will start. Have the sword and the Tower of Alien Dimension been delivered? Mingfei asked. The Tower of Alien Dimensions is the Black Pyramid seized from the Japanese heretics. After being activated and combined together, the space inside the tower can be exchanged with that of Nibelungen, thus entering Nibelungen. Or something can be released from Nibelungen. Shuzaham turned off the flight mode of his phone, tapped his thumb and shook his head. Not yet, maybe I have to wait until tomorrow. Too slow. Mingfei frowned slightly. Let's get a car first and confirm whether the false god is still there. My father asked the driver to pick me up, and there happened to be a car. Shuzaham nodded, and did not hesitate at all when the weapon was not in his hand. In Nibelungen, he and Mingfei could be directly watched by the Emperor, and the supreme holy light and courage in their hearts were the best weapons. At this time, there were still many wanderers returning home from abroad, and Mingfei and Shuzaham were obviously the most eye-catching. In the short moment when the two stopped to communicate, several girls who were influenced by the open atmosphere abroad boldly came up to ask for contact information, and there was even a flight attendant. If it were any other time, the two weeping angels might have rejected them in a friendly manner, but now they simply chose to ignore them and walked out of the terminal door quickly. In the bustling crowd of people waiting for the arrival of the airport, the two immediately saw a pickup sign with the three characters Shuzaham written on it. The person holding the sign was a middle-aged man with a gentle look. Master, the boss asked me to pick you up. The man lowered his eyebrows and respectfully tried to take Shuzaham's hand back, while his eyes inevitably fell on Mingfei who was traveling with him. Brother. Shuzaham blurted out. Before the man understood the meaning of this what, Shuzaham continued. Just call me Zaham from now on, Uncle Lin. Also, I may trouble you to take a taxi back, I have to drive to a place. The driver, who was called Uncle Lin, was stunned. Aren't you going back? The boss also specifically asked me to tell you that the wife personally cooked soup for you. I'll go back after I'm done. Please tell my father, he will reimburse your taxi fare. After that, Shuzaham naturally took the car keys from the driver's waist and walked away. Mingfei nodded slightly to show his greetings and followed closely, leaving only the driver who was a little dazed. The black Mercedes-Benz S500 picked them up. It was a first-class good car, a symbol of the boss's status, but in the eyes of Mingfei and Shuzaham, it was first-class fragile. Fortunately, the speed was guaranteed. Although it was not as fast as a super sports car, it was also 250 km per hour. Outside the airport is the ring road, and it won't take long to get on the elevated road. Shuzaham sat in the driver's seat and took a deep breath. Well, let's go. Mingfei sat in the passenger seat and closed the car door to isolate himself from the cold wind and rain outside. Shuzaham stepped on the accelerator, and the roaring engine stimulated the Mercedes-Benz car to accelerate to 4 seconds per 100 meters. The wheels rolled out to wide catching ruts in the rain and rushed into the dark wind and rain. There is no need for GPS navigation. The highways outside the city have been deeply engraved in Shuzaham's heart. But that section of the elevated road is not on these highways. It does not exist in reality. No matter how much Shuzaham searched on the map, he could not find the North Highway. It is not the peak season for returning home. There is no one on the highway. Shuzaham increased the speed from the initial 60 km per hour to 120 km per hour. The rain hitting the car window is like a slender and pale palm, pulling out winding watermarks. Mingfei's eyes lit up with a faint golden light, which was the physical enhancement brought by the alien blood in his body. He was also concentrating on the road illuminated by the Mercedes-Benz headlights. The car CD was playing Beethoven's Tempest Sonata. The pleasant piano sound echoed in his ears. It was unclear whether the owner of the car or the driver had artistic taste. The solemn and anxious tones of the first movement seemed to bring them back to the stormy night more than half a year ago. The second movement began with a warm B major triad, temporarily ending the contradiction and anxiety of the first movement. When the third movement began, Shusham slowed down the car. "The toll station is ahead," he said in a deep voice. "Yeah." Mingfei's fingers tapped his thighs lightly in the minor key of the piano music. In the dim vision, he could see the highway toll station with lights on in front of him. The destination of his and Shusham's rush from Nibelungen was a highway toll station. But the difference was that there was no one working at the toll station at the time, while the toll collector was sitting in the booth watching a drama with an MP4. Cut. The middle-aged toll collector had no other expression except for looking at Shusham, who was driving because of the Mercedes-Benz S500. His attention was put back on the twisting man and woman on the screen. Shusham took the card and looked at Mingfei. "No problem. Keep driving." Mingfei didn't notice anything unusual. The car passed the checkpoint slowly and evenly, and then accelerated. "Do you remember the scene at the time?" "Well, after driving through the toll station, my father saw the traffic jam, so he drove onto an extended elevated road next to it. The branches were knocking on the sign with the blood-red No. Nord Highway written on it." Shusham nodded. Mingfei rolled down the window, and the biting cold wind mixed with rain poured in. He didn't smell the unique special smell belonging to Nibelungen. In fact, there was no need to smell anything. As long as he entered the range of Nibelungen, Mingfei could immediately feel the sacredness and warmth of being watched and favored by the great existence. But now there is nothing. After the twists and turns of the tune, the third movement of the storm sonata ended on the last single note D, announcing the end of the storm, but the two people sitting in the Mercedes still failed to enter the Nibelungen, nor did they find the non-existent elevated highway. The Mercedes slowly stopped on the dark highway, and the rain splashed on the road. The trees on both sides of the road were bent by the strong wind, like huge black shadows bowing to them. There was a silence in the car, and after a while, Mingfei slowly said, "Well, I'm beginning to miss the mouth of the Fingal brothers that can liven up the atmosphere." "Then I hope he won't say the line, 'You have the ability to rob men, but you don't have the ability to open the door.' As far as I know, he learned Chinese by watching Chinese TV dramas." Shusham exhaled and said in a deep voice, "The alchemist said that Nibelungen is a distorted spiritual space with a small entrance and exit between it and the real world. Those who are lucky enough to escape from Nibelungen will have a mark on their bodies, like a beacon pointing the way. Nibelungen is directly open to him." Shusham repeated the knowledge that old Tang analyzed from the alchemy book in a deep voice. "If the beacon fails, it means that the owner of Nibelungen has closed the entrance and exit." Mingfei raised a cold arc at the corner of his mouth. "That false god, is he afraid?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 159, Surveillance. Go back first. When the alien tower is delivered, it will be useless even if he hides behind closed doors. Mingfei closed the car window again to block out the wind and rain. It was obviously the right choice to pack this alchemical creation and send it together. Since it involves Nibelungen, it would be right to bring the key that can open Nibelungen. "Well." Shusham restarted the car. "Then where are you going next?" Mingfei thought for a while. "I won't go to my uncle's house for the time being. The wanted order of the heretic in Japan seems to have residual influence. Just find a place to rest for a night. If you don't mind, you can come to my house. I have a spare guest room." "That's fine." Mingfei did not refuse. It didn't matter where he was while waiting for the alien tower and weapons to be delivered. It was past 11 o'clock in the evening when the rain gradually subsided. The black Mercedes-Benz S500 slowly drove into Bishuiju. In the city center, Bishuiju is also a high-end community. Those who can afford to buy a house here are either rich or noble. Shusham couldn't help but think of that man again. When he was still alive, he squeezed into a residential house with his mother and young self. Although life was tight at the time, it was very happy. When he was a child, he always rode on the man's neck and turned around in the house of dozens of square meters, like a warrior riding a dragon and giggling. His mother hurriedly took care of her cosmetics to prevent them from being knocked off. After all, one piece could be worth a man's monthly salary. Obviously, he had such an awesome identity and experience, but he pretended to be poor in front of them. Was that man sick? Shusham shook his head and threw away the past thoughts from his head. He turned the steering wheel and drove the car into his garage along the asphalt road. The other seat was empty. Obviously, the entrepreneur dad would not go home to spend the night tonight because of his busy work. "We're here." Shuzaham turned off the engine and took out the key, and gently woke up Lumenfei, who was thinking with his eyes closed. "Out of etiquette, how should I address your mother?" Lumenfei asked. Being ruthless and cold to the enemy, friendly and respectful to companions, and gentle and polite to mortals is the fine tradition of the Weepers. When he was still a slave of the Weepers, there was even a Weepers Astates who came to visit them in the slave cabin during their free time to express his gratitude for their service. "If you can call her sister, she should be very happy," Shuzaham said after a moment of silence. "This is the second time I begin to miss the atmosphere of the Fingal brothers being present. He is better at this than me." Lumenfei sighed softly. The whole community was quiet, and the rustling sound of rain hitting fallen leaves was clearly audible. The two stepped on the puddles on the path and crossed the lawn in front of the house. The house was still lit with warm lights. The house was also quiet, and the heating made the room warm as spring. A woman fell asleep on the sofa with a blanket in her arms, and a few strands of long hair covered her young and beautiful face. The noise of the two people entering the house woke up the woman. She was subconsciously flustered at first, but she calmed down after seeing Shuzaham, and a pleasant smile appeared on her face. "Zohan, are you back? Are you tired from the flight? You probably haven't eaten yet. I'll heat up the food for you, and I've also made chicken soup for you." The woman climbed up from the sofa with a blanket wrapped around her, and greeted Shuzaham in the hallway with sparkling eyes. Before she could take a good look at her son, whom she hadn't seen for more than half a year, she saw a young boy behind her son. She was a little stunned and didn't react. Why did her son bring a boy back from the United States? "Here's Lumenfei, the classmate who went to study in the United States with me. Because it was too late, I brought him back to stay for one night." Shuzaham explained calmly, and he could tell what his mother was thinking from his expression. "Oh. It turned out to be a classmate." Su Xiaoyan was relieved. "I'm sorry to bother you, sister." Lumenfei bowed slightly, and finally tried to adapt to the etiquette of his hometown. It's okay since you're Zaham's classmate." Su Xiaoyan was really happy with this title. "I'll get you some new slippers." "No need, Mom, you should go to bed early. I'll get it with my classmate." Shuzaham held his hospitable mother. It was estimated that she didn't even know where the new slips were, so she would definitely take her best friend's slips from the shoe cabinet to make up for it. Okay, my son has learned to take care of himself in the United States," Su Xiaoyan said with a smile, hugged Shuzaham's head and kissed him fiercely, then yawned and stretched her waist and walked back to her room. Shuzaham calmly wiped off the light lip prints and saliva on his face. Sure enough, no matter how old he was, this woman still treated him as the child who hadn't grown up before. The most reliable thing she had ever done in her memory was to give birth to herself, right? The man said that she wanted to abort the child because she was afraid of the pain, but it was too late to regret it. She was already 8 months pregnant at the time. "I'm sorry to make you laugh." He turned around and said to Lumenfei, "It's nothing." Lumenfei didn't care about it, and looked at everything in the house. It has become his instinct to conduct a combat assessment when entering a new environment for the first time. But it is obvious that the decoration company's plan did not intend to decorate this place into a fortress that is easy to defend and difficult to attack. In Lumenfei's eyes, it must be an unqualified offensive and defensive facility. "I'll tidy up the room for you. After dinner, we will rest early and recharge our energy," Shuzaham said, putting down the travel bag in his hand. When he was about to walk towards a room in the house, he was stopped by Lumenfei. "Wait." Shuzaham was stunned, and then he saw Lumenfei's eyes that were slowly dyed with a layer of hazy golden mist, and his lips moving gently. "Someone is staring at us." "Which direction?" Shuzaham reacted immediately, but did not look around, but reached out to take the bag in Lumenfei's hand. "There is no killing intent, and we cannot confirm the location. We can only confirm that the weapon staring at us is not a sniper rifle or something like that." Lumenfei activated the foreboding function. If the weapon the other party was staring at them with was a sniper rifle, then he could even get a sensory reminder before the other party raised the thought of pulling the trigger to attack. But the psychic power did not give him any feedback. Shuzaham's face darkened. If this gaze was not directed at him, then it must be directed at his mother. The entrepreneur father often does not go home because of his busy work. There is only one nanny at home. A beautiful woman alone at home is indeed easy to attract attention. I'll go and see. Lu Mingfei turned and walked back to the hallway. He seemed to be preparing to change his shoes, but he took the broom leaning against the shoe cabinet. The next second, he turned into a swift black shadow and rushed out the door. Water splashed on the ground, but before they splashed, Lu Mingfei had already taken a step. The cold rain slightly stimulated his senses. The moment he left the house, the feeling of being watched suddenly increased, but it disappeared immediately. His instinct was right. Someone was watching him and Shuzahan, but he retreated immediately after realizing that he might be exposed. The community was completely dark. There were dense green trees planted between each independent villa to ensure that the owners who bought the house had enough privacy. The only light source was the white lights every few meters on both sides of the community road, but in the cold darkness, their light source was really limited. It was not the first time that Lu Mingfei missed his power armor. Even if he was only wearing a combat helmet now, he could make enemies hiding in this environment nowhere to hide with just the photoelectric imaging system of his goggles. But now was not the time to miss this. He stopped in the rain, and the alien blood in his body was gradually boiling under the stimulation. Although the alien's power was unclean, it was a temporary substitute for his current body strengthening system. The golden mist in his eyes condensed into a blazing golden magma, and his pupils were transforming into the vertical pupils of the top predator. If there were security guards on night patrol passing by the community, they would definitely see the young boy's eyes shining like a flashlight shining on golden light. Everything within his field of vision was covered with a layer of golden light. All moving objects were within Lu Mingfei's senses. He could even clearly capture the trajectory of each drop of raindrops falling. In addition to the raindrops, there were other objects moving at high speed within his field of vision. As Lu Mingfei charged forward, his field of vision was like a rapidly tracking lens that quickly zoomed in on the target, but he did not capture any figure. Only the raindrops that showed an unnatural trajectory indicated that something invisible was accelerating to escape from here. Word spirit. Dark illumination. Is it a hybrid? Lu Mingfei raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not fall behind much in the cultural courses at Castle Academy. He got full marks in practical combat, nearly full marks in theory, and full marks in alchemy experiments, with the chief alchemist sergeant of the Weeping Angels, of course, full marks. If it was this highly concealed word spirit coupled with this low-light environment, it would be really difficult to handle without the Astartes combat helmet. Although he could not see the other party, the airflow driven by the other party's high-speed movement was clearly visible against the background of the rain, and at this time the other party was about to leave the range of Bishuiju. The Bishuiju community is surrounded by a 3-meter-high white wall with a sharp carved fence on the top. This kind of protection may be able to stop ordinary thieves, but it is impossible to stop the hybrids. Lu Mingfei raised his arm. He was holding the broom he brought from Shuzahan's house. The broom for cleaning had been removed in advance, but the wooden handle was facing the flowing air in the field of vision. Then he threw it hard, and only heard a piercing scream. The household broom that cost 10 yuan in the supermarket seemed to become the communeering audience hand under this terrifying acceleration. In less than a second, the wooden handle of the broom reached its end, bringing a touch of bright red blood in the air. With a painful roar, a figure appeared from the darkness. The wooden handle of the broom pierced his chest directly, but the position was not the heart. It was unknown whether Lu Mingfei missed or deliberately missed to save his life. In short, he did not die on the spot. He endured the pain and fear in his heart, stepped on the wall to gain leverage before he lost balance and fell, and flicked over the wall. When Lu Mingfei approached the high wall, the sound of a car starting up could be heard outside, and the tires rubbed against the ground and made a striking scream. When he flicked over, he could only see a small car rushing into the road outside as if fleeing for its life. Chapter 160 Stolen. Shuzahan went to pick up Lu Mingfei. The camera captured Lu Mingfei's figure climbing over the wall at a normal speed, and then the security guards of Bishuiju rushed out with a strong flashlight and explosion-proof fort to capture a wild weeping angel that intended to enter the community to steal. Fortunately, Shuzahan arrived in time before the security guards called the police. They recognized Shuzahan as the celebrity child of the big entrepreneur Lu. Under his protection, the security guards took a few photos as evidence. After the leader nodded in agreement, he let Lu Mingfei go. What happened? Shuzahan asked in a low voice. Mixed blood, the word spirit should be Mingzhao. Run fast, there is a car outside to pick him up. Lu Mingfei took out a bloody wooden stick, which was the wooden handle of the broom that pierced the other party's body. The other party pulled out the wooden handle before getting in the car. Obviously, his physical fitness is very strong. Shusaham breathed a sigh of relief. If it was a mixed blood, the possibility that the other party came for his mother should be smaller. Did you remember the license plate? No, the license plate was wrapped in black cloth. But this will work too. Let's ask the branch to test the blood on it later. Mingfei handed the stick to Shusaham and wiped the rain off his windbreaker. I saved his life. If his mind is normal, he knows what will happen if he bothers us again. He had planned to rest directly after bathing and praying, but this sudden little accident made Mingfei consume a lot of energy, so Shusaham went to the kitchen to heat up his food. Under normal training intensity, Mingfei and Shusaham would visit the cafeteria at least 6 or 7 times a day, eating rice, vegetables, and pork elbows, and bringing the same amount of food to Yuan Xing, who was serving as a sparring partner. Shusaham did not trust his mother's cooking skills. Although she was often taken to fashion kitchen training classes by her group of rich wives and girlfriends, the things she made when she returned home were often completely different from those in class. After all, there was no chef at home to guide her in real time. Fortunately, the dishes looked edible. Shusaham even tested them for poison before serving them. It was obviously not good for a fighting brother to get food poisoning when he first came to visit his home. However, Mingfei didn't care about it and ate with relish. After bathing and praying, Mingfei and Shusaham went to bed early to conserve their energy for the battling more than 10 hours. There was no conversation all night. When they woke up, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning. Praying, washing, tidying up clothes, the two of them completed the daily morning getting up process tacitly and meticulously. Are you going out again? It's raining outside, wet and cold. Su Xiaoyan had already gotten up and was curled up on the sofa wrapped in a blanket, browsing her phone. When she saw the two people walking out of the room, her eyes lit up. Did you buy these clothes from the United States? They're quite handsome. But with my son's face and figure, he looks handsome in anything. Well, there is a project for practical work during the winter vacation, and we plan to complete it as soon as possible. The clothes are not bought, but given to outstanding students by the school. Shusaham calmly answered Su Xiaoyan's questions one by one. The first part was a lie, and the latter part was half true and half false. Of course, those who can enter the castle executive department are excellent students, but the standard suits and windbreakers inside are not given, but Mingfei asked Finkel to get them. What kind of school is it? You're only a freshman and you're doing a practical project, okay? Be careful, don't catch a cold, and come back early to talk to your mother. Su Xiaoyan pouted a little dissatisfied. Although she is already a mother, she still looks like a spoiled girl. Well, bye, Mom. Shusaham made a simple farewell, probably understanding that the man didn't want to involve his family in this bloody storm about the Dragon clan. The two of them were still driving the Mercedes-Benz S500 from last night. With the roar of the engine, the black Mercedes-Benz reversed out of the garage beautifully and rushed into the cold rain. Do you want to go to the branch first? I checked and the things are still undergoing the inspection process. It is estimated that they will not arrive until the afternoon. Then let's go to your father's secret base first. Mingfei recalled Shu Tianzhao's secret base. At the time, they had not yet entered castle to learn about the relevant aliens. This time, they went there to reread the information. Maybe they would get something new. Okay. Shusaham nodded, turned the steering wheel and drove along the road out of the city to the edge of the city. The abandoned steel plant area was still dilapidated and depressed. The wet and cold winter rain cast a shadow of dead silence on this place. If the second part of the Silent Hill movie is to be released, it can even be used here. The raindrops hit the umbrella with a pattering sound. Mingfei and Shusaham got out of the car and walked on the gravel road to the depths of the factory area. This time, no blind people came out to block the road. Perhaps they were dispersed together with the last purification of the fallen hybrids. The people in the branch also handled the follow-up of the incident very cleanly. At least Shusaham did not see any news reporting that an evil religious gathering occurred at the site of the Barbaoshan Iron and Steel plant. The grey-white building where the Media Asia Group bankruptcy liquidation team office is located is empty. The middle-aged man who is guarding here probably can't stand this kind of weather and is curled up in his bed at home. Shusaham followed the basement path with a strong smell of kerosene in his memory, walked to the 062 room, and took out the new key that was originally printed. Just as he was about to open the iron door, he suddenly stopped and then slowly said, "Others have been here." Others? Well, the last time I came here before I went to the United States, I clipped a few strands of hair on the edge of the door before I left. Now the hair is gone. Shuzaham turned the key. Simple but effective defensive method. Where did you learn it from? Lu Mingfei nodded in appreciation. The Adventure of Little Tigers. There was a time when this series of juvenile detective novels was very popular, so my father ran to the bookstore and bought a set for me. Although he seemed to be chatting, Shuzaham's eyes became as sharp as an eagle, and he was obviously ready for battle. He pushed open the iron door, and what came into view was still a simple but clean little house, with a double bed, bedside table. Everything was no different from the first time he came in. Does it have anything to do with yesterday's surveillance? Lu Mingfei pulled open the double bed with ease, revealing the green secret door underneath. The lock had been split open by Shuzaham at the time, so anyone could enter at will. I don't know, they might want to investigate my father's past. Shuzaham pulled open the heavy secret door, his eyes covered with a bright golden light, and he slid down the steel pipe after roughly confirming that there would be no traps set by intruders below. The strong aroma of cigars filled his nose, and when the lights were turned on, what came into view were Shu Tianzhao's valuable collections, whiskey, cigars, and classic jazz vinyl records. Obviously, just taking some things out to exchange for money would improve the family's life at the time, and if he was asked about the source, he could just make up a reason to get away with it. Shuzaham was touched, and a hint of dissatisfaction with the man arose. All those information cards and newspaper clippings with dragons written on them were taken away. Lu Mingfei said, pointing to the crisscrossing red lines above the big bed, like a spider web. The photos, news clippings and cards that originally showed various signs of alien activities were gone. The identity of the intruder has been confirmed to be a hybrid. If it was an ordinary thief, his target should be the red wine and cigars on the wall, not these small cards about the unsolved mysteries of the world. However, what Lu Mingfei was most concerned about was the briefcase with the castle emblem under the workbench. There were many simple firearms in it. He walked to the workbench and squatted down, and there was nothing underneath. It seems that we have another account to settle. Lu Mingfei's face was not very good. He came here to take the gun, but someone took the weapons left by Shu Tianzhao before them. Chapter 161 Division. It was 12:35 noon, and it was drizzling. The black Mercedes-Benz S500 stopped in front of the Papa's German countryside restaurant. Shuzaham raised his eyebrows, because he had been to this restaurant before. When the restaurant first opened, his mother brought him here to eat German schnitzel and Munich grilled sausages. However, in the address given by Norma, this German restaurant is a branch of Castle College in this city. There was a today's special menu at the door, but due to the weather, no matter how delicious the food was, it couldn't attract too many people to come here to eat at this time, so there were not many customers in the restaurant. Welcome, would you like to taste today's special menu? The waiter greeted Lu Mingfei and Shuzaham very enthusiastically, but when he saw Shuzaham showing the half-rotten World Treat badge, his face changed slightly. Okay, please follow me to the VIP room on the 3rd floor. However, the VIP room was obviously used as a cover-up, and the waiter actually took the two to the manager's office on the 3rd floor. Manager, I brought 2 VIP guests here. The waiter knocked on the door gently. I see. You can go down and do your work. After the waiter went downstairs, the door of the manager's office opened, revealing a white head. 2 big star junior brothers. I guessed it was you. The beautiful girl with short white hair smiled and had a very flattering expression. Lu Mingfei only felt that this white-haired girl looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who she was after thinking carefully. After all, there were many loyal and fanatical fighting girls in his memory, and their white hair was quite eye-catching on the scarlet battlefield. The white-haired girl looked at Lu Mingfei's expression of hard thinking, and the smile on her face froze. She is senior sister Iris-san. She was also present when the fallen hybrids were purified, and later she and Professor Manstein interviewed us for admission. Shuzaham reminded from behind. Lu Mingfei suddenly realized it, and suddenly recalled the executive department specialist who had white hair but was not very good in combat. Iris was hit hard. If she were to be portrayed in the form of a comic, she would now be covered with a layer of grey. Why would the Castle China branch use a German restaurant as a cover? Shuzaham asked, changing the subject in time. Why not? After all, not all branches can fully cooperate with the castle headquarters like the Japanese branch. Elise sorted out her mood and began to popularize the relevant knowledge of the castle branch to her 2 junior brothers. In addition to the Japanese branch, which is large and powerful, other branches are more inclined to intelligence agencies and business organizations, mainly responsible for monitoring dragon activities, discovering unawakened hybrids and guiding them to join castle, and paying attention to whether there are hybrid activities other than data. But after all, there are not dragons hanging around outside every day, so most of the time these branches are used to make money. In addition to the funds donated by the board of directors, Castle College also has a lot of expenses from the branch. As for the profitable business, it depends on local conditions. The Egyptian branch has a group of excellent antiquities dealers, the American branch has a group of financiers, and the British branch is studying gold and oil futures. The carders and specialists of the Chinese branch open restaurants and sell liquor, which is also profitable in China, where food is the most important thing for the people and there is a deep drinking culture. Are there any other hybrids in this city besides you? I remember that there are hybrid forces in the local area that are based on the family system. Xu Zhang asked. As a country with a mythological culture that uses the dragon as a sacred totem and various dragon elements, it is impossible that there are no hybrids. It can only be said that they're hiding very deeply. Ah, this actually exists. When Iris heard Xu Zhang mention this, she looked embarrassed, as if she was considering whether to tell Xu Zhang this. Test the blood on it. Mingfei handed over the blood-stained half of the broom handle. Looking at the red stick, Iris was terrified. What is this? Last night, a hybrid of the word spirit and Mingzhao was monitoring us, and I found him. Unfortunately, he ran fast and I couldn't stop him. The stick is covered with his blood. Mingfei said. Elise took a deep breath and could only sigh that there was a reason why the S level was so awesome. The stick was most likely pierced through the other person's body, otherwise it would be impossible for every inch of it to be stained with even blood red like this. Okay, I have to apply to the leader for this, otherwise it will easily turn into a conflict between the hybrid forces if it is not handled properly. If the word spirit is underworld, then I can responsibly clarify to you two that the hybrid who is monitoring you is definitely not from the Li family. Someone said. Mingfei turned around and saw a man wearing a black windbreaker from the executive department coming up the stairs. I hope my poor command in the last incident at the Sacred Heart Maria Hospital didn't leave a bad impression on you too. The man smiled and stretched out his palm to Mingfei and Xu Zhang. Mingfei recognized the other person this time, Li Jianxing, a specialist in the executive department, who was pushed from the combat position to the command position in the last operation to purify heretics, and his performance was not outstanding. Li family. Xu Zhang keenly caught a word mentioned by Li Jianxing. At present, it is the Orthodox family that cooperates most closely with the secret party, so as to facilitate the handling of matters related to the Dragon clan in the country. After all, the secret party is a group of foreigners. Even if they want to slay dragons, they can't just run to the mainland and make trouble. Otherwise, we Chinese under the secret party will become rare. Li Jianxing said with a smile. Let me introduce myself again, Li Jianxing, a 2003 Castle graduate, currently an A-level specialist in the executive department, and also one of the 7 stars of the Li family. Brother Li, do you mean that no one of the hybrids in your family has the spirit of the underworld? Mingfei asked. This is a family secret, I can only tell you that it is true. I will immediately test the clues you provided to confirm as soon as possible whether the hybrids monitoring you belong to other forces. Okay, thank you. Mingfei nodded. The hybrids monitoring them and those who broke into Xu Tianzhao's dark room should be the same group of hybrids. After finding them, we will look at their motives and performances and then define whether they are heretics. Besides, the focus today is not on this. He is now waiting for the weapons and the alien tower to be delivered to him, so that he can return to Nibelungen to settle accounts with the false god in hiding. You're welcome. I am currently the person in charge of this branch. This is my job. Li Jianxing said. Can I ask one more question, Senior Brother Li? About orthodoxy. Xu Zhang thought for a while and asked again. Of course you can, but whether I answer depends on whether your question involves confidential information. As a local family, why don't you take the initiative to recruit wild hybrids, but let them be discovered by Castle and introduced into the secret party? From a normal person's perspective, this is a kind of talent loss. It's the influence of clan culture. Many elders in the clan believe that the purity of family bloodline is very important, so they are not very willing to accept hybrids outside the family. Li Jianxing answered directly. Come to think of it, I was also recruited into Castle College, and later the family discovered that I was. It involves a family scandal, so I won't say much. Shoesham nodded. After the question in his mind was answered, he stopped asking questions. At Lumenfei's signal, he followed Iris to the rest room prepared for the executive department specialist to take the final rest for the fighting that would take place several hours later. Chapter 162. Holy Light Returns. It was 5:20 p.m., and it was raining heavily. The night in the cold winter fell very quickly, and perhaps partly because of the rain, the sky was already stained with ink. The 3 alchemical items, Jinyu, Murazame, and Alien Tower, were finally delivered to Lumenfei and Shoesham in the freezing rain. Shinkusanergy is strictly an animal corpse. Even if it can be sent back to the country, it will inevitably waste a lot of time. It is better to take Murazame back. The decisive battle with the gods should also use this weapon to draw the final curtain and ending. Your faces show who you are going to seek revenge on. Iris whispered with some fear. When the 2 big boys were in the manager's office, they were like 2 old Taoists in meditation, with a calm look of ascending to heaven and chanting prayers that she could not understand. But after touching the long sword and the katana, their momentum changed, from masters of Taoism to fierce thugs. Almost. Lumenfei opened the suitcase and checked the 6 pyramid-shaped black metals stored in the grooves. The surface was painted with various strange and complicated patterns and symbols. The Tower of Alien Dimension, one of the gains from the trip to Japan, can be combined to complete the space replacement with Nibelungen and enter the hidden interior of Nibelungen. Because the shape looks very similar to the Millennium Lego in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Fingal once suggested that the initial members of the Holy Blood Hall wear one around their necks, and then make a hairstyle that looks like they are good at playing cards, but Lumenfei directly rejected it. With it, even if the false god hides behind closed doors, it will be useless. Thank you for the lunch. To be honest, your craftsmanship is much better than that of the cafeteria. After Lumenfei finished the inspection, he closed the suitcase and said goodbye to Commissioner Iris, who stayed behind in the branch. Don't cause any deaths, otherwise, even if you are Chinese, it will be difficult for the college to explain to the Orthodox Li family. But before she finished speaking, Lumenfei and Shoesham had already walked out of the door of the German restaurant, and their figures merged into the black wind and rain outside. Only the drop of blood and tears with wings behind the windbreaker of the executive department was still bright. It's similar to the day, right? It was also raining. Lumenfei said. He sat in the co-pilot with both hands on the hilt of the Jinyu sword. The silver sword edge shone with a cold edge. The living spirit inside it that had been bathed in the Emperor's holy light seemed to feel the Master's fighting spirit and made a slight buzzing sound. Well. But this time we are going to seek revenge. Shoesham nodded and put Murazame in the groove of the car door for umbrellas. Although this car is not a Maybach, it is also a luxury car, so this little function is still available. That night, the man drew the blade from her and fought with those black shadows. Before leaving the city, the 2 of them activated the towers of the other dimension one by one according to the method given by the alchemist Sergeant Lao Tang and placed them directly on the car. It was not important to replace the space with that piece of space, as long as they could get them in. Boom. Suddenly, the rain became heavier, as if someone poured a bucket of water on it, and even the windshield wipes could not sweep the pouring rain off the car windows in time. The cold air seemed to penetrate into the car. Neither Lumenfei nor Shoesham spoke. Only the cheerful piano music full of vitality and youthful atmosphere echoed melodiously in the car stereo. It was the Spring Waltz by the Austrian master Johann Strauss, although it did not match the wind terrain outside the window at this time and the darkness of the 2 soldiers in the car who were about to step onto the battlefield and launch a charge. It seems we are here. Shoesham suddenly spoke softly. In this rain, Shoesham slowed down the speed to 40 km per hour to avoid a car accident before seeing Odeon. A mercury-colored light shone through the car window. A toll booth appeared in front of them. Unlike the toll booth they saw last night, it stood quietly on the road. The light that shot up into the sky was like a lighthouse guiding the direction of ships lost in the storm. The Mercedes-Benz rushed through the unattended toll booth and saw the grey high bridge that seemed to be built in the rain. The lights of the toll booth and the Mercedes-Benz could only barely illuminate a part of it. The rest seemed to be swallowed up in the darkness. I don't know if it extends to the abyss of hell. The rusty iron plate on the roadside was no longer blocked by branches. No. Nor reflected a scarlet light under the light of the car lights. They had already broken into the Nibelungen that was closed by Odeon. Shoesham stepped on the accelerator, and the Mercedes-Benz stirred up turbulent water on both sides, heading forward towards this dark elevated road in the wind and rain. A familiar atmosphere was filling the car. It's exactly the same as that day. Mingfei's expression became pious and peaceful. There was a kind of power gathering in his body. When he opened his eyes again, he could only see the sacred and bright golden light in his eyes. Thunder seemed to roar in the sky, the thunder that confirmed the birth and death of stars. Nibelungen, the land of the dead and dark labyrinth in the mouths of the half-bloods, has now become the main battlefield that is absolutely beneficial to Mingfei. If possible, Mingfei hopes that every enemy will drag him into the Nibelungen fight in the future, so that he can better embrace the holy light from the Emperor. The spring waltz ended. It was the last song played in the playlist. After this song ended, the car was once again filled with the sound of heavy rain. Bang bang. The car doors knocked gently, followed by a strange sneer. Bang. It was Shuzaham's palm that responded. The panic he experienced for the first time had long disappeared, replaced by a resolute and calm face. He held the steering wheel with his right hand and smashed the car window with his left fist, just like catching a mischievous kid, and locked at black shadow that was knocking on the car window with his palm. A brilliant golden light also rose in Shuzaham's eyes. His breathing suddenly became heavy, and his skin was red as if it was congested. The next second, the black shadow that he held tightly in his hand ignited a blazing flame. The black shadow could no longer laugh. It screamed and struggled in pain in the flames, like a piece of rag swaying in a storm, until it was burned into red charcoal. Shuzaham threw away the body of the black shadow and retracted his wet arm from the window. These black shadows will face the judgment of the Emperor's wrath. On the other side, Mingfei's figure had disappeared, and rain poured in from the open car window, soaking the leather seat of the co-pilot. In the violent storm, Mingfei stood on the roof of the car running wildly on the elevated road, as firm as a rock, and the strong wind made his windbreaker rustle. His golden eyes scanned the group of aliens running wildly around the Mercedes-Benz car indifferently. The next second, his figure became blurred in the rainy night. The silver sword arc was like lightning in the darkness. In an instant, the heads of all the aliens were separated from their bodies. Before their necks could spurt out blood like fountains, the charging Mercedes-Benz had already thrown them away into the endless darkness behind them. Now you are not qualified to face the son of St. Jeremiah, the warriors of the Emperor. Mingfei's figure stabilized on the roof again, and the dazzling golden light was lighting up behind him, like a sun that was about to rise. Then the sun quickly condensed, turning into a blurry halo and a pair of blazing wings of light at the back of Mingfei's head and back. The only light in the dark universe, that great being once again cast his eyes on this world. And Mingfei, blessed by his spiritual energy, once again showed the form of the Emperor Saint. Chapter 163 The Mutated God. The Emperor's psychic energy is both a gift and a test for the recipient. Although Mingfei's current image is very similar to the saint in the national religion story, if he wants to fully accept the Emperor's blessing, he must burn his old body with holy flames and reshape a new body. But the great being did not do so. The psychic blessing Mingfei received this time was maintained in a delicately balanced state. It was not like the night food, when his body was burned by a raging fire, and it looked charred, although Mingfei himself did not notice anything unusual. Jinyu let out a joyful roar, and the golden flames and light merged together and quickly materialized. The slender sword body, which was only 2 fingers wide, have turned into a giant sword shining with flames. Standing on the roof, Mingfei has an excellent field of vision. The saint's eyes can clearly see countless black shadows rushing out of the dark abyss on both sides of the elevated road, as if endless. You can clearly see their pale faces wrapped in black robes, chasing after Mercedes-Benz with their hands and feet like a group of bloodhounds. There are also several burly guys among them. They are like giant bears running wildly. Every time they move their hands and feet, they will tear open a large area of lichen on the elevated road. Mingfei ignored these dirty aliens for the time being. He took a deep breath, and the wings behind him twisted and spurted out a strong golden light. The whole person turned into a stream of light and dived into the abyss beside the elevated road. It was still imitating the flying method of the jetpack, and the speed increase brought was absolutely qualified. Mingfei held the Jinyu giant sword, like a golden meteor tearing through the darkness. Mingfei planned to directly destroy the root of these aliens, just like he had fought against the Chaos Traitors in the past, destroying those blasphemous devices that provided evil power. What reached his ears was the roar of the waves, as if the bottom of the abyss was a dark sea. Although the black ocean seemed to be very close, even if Mingfei dived straight down, he could not touch the ocean. Moreover, there was an aura that made him inexplicably familiar. Mingfei frowned, flapped his wings and soared straight up, and began to return to the elevated highway. A pair of dazzling headlights pierced through the dark rain curtain. A black car rushed out from the opposite side of the elevated road and was speeding towards the Mercedes-Benz. Even the heavy rain could not cover up the roar of this black beast. However, Shoesham had discovered the existence of this car early, but he did not intend to turn to avoid it. Because his pair of golden eyes that were frozen like ice clearly captured the shining car logo of the two MS overlapping in the shape of a mountain on the front of the black car. It was a Maybach, but there was no one in the driver's seat. Blood burst once, blood burst again. The dragon blood in Shoesham's body began to boil fiercely again. He opened his mouth and blew out a scorching breath. Without the need to chant dragon script, a ball of orange-red fire pierced the darkness of the rainy night and slammed into the Maybach that was rushing towards him. The high temperature and high pressure pressed down the head of the black beast at the first sight. The inertia that had not yet dissipated and the impact of the explosion made the Maybach, which had turned into a fireball, fly into the air, and after several somersaults, it crashed into the Huns behind the Mercedes. Shoesham calmly glanced at the completely exploded Maybach in the rearview mirror. His hand holding the steering wheel never moved. The Mercedes continued to rush forward on the scorching ground and hot steam. "In the name of the Emperor, I will be fearless," he said softly. Unlike the bloody explosions in Japan, this second bloody explosion did not bring any abnormality to Shoesham. He still maintained his human appearance, and none of the characteristics after the dragonization appeared. He seemed to be surrounded by warm golden light, and his heart was as calm as water. "It seems that the false god has taken the initiative to come to us." Mingfei's wings behind him gushed light, maintaining the same flying speed as the Mercedes-Benz. Both of them could clearly see the dazzling mercury light in the distance of the road. The false warmth seemed to deceive the lonely boats in the sea who mistakenly thought they saw the return lighthouse. "This time it's our turn to welcome him," Shoesham said, stepping on the brakes to slow down the speed of the car, but the white light in the field of vision continued to expand. "Then I'll go and purify the group of aliens behind." The golden light turned back and killed into the group of bloodhounds that were chasing relentlessly. Wherever the holy light passed, only the surging black blood merged into the wind and rain. Shoesham took out the village rain and got out of the car. The wind and rain blew on his resolute face, and his bright golden eyes stared at the black shadow that was looming in the white light. "Gah!" A cry came from his ears. Shoesham turned his head and saw a black feathered crow standing on the roof of the Mercedes-Benz. It was also staring at him, but its mung-bean-sized eyes were somewhat deep, faintly emitting purple light. Why would a crow appear in such a place? This was a question that Shoesham subconsciously had in his mind, but he was relieved immediately. In Norse mythology, crows are Odin's eyes, standing on his shoulders to tell Odin what they see every day, and they also symbolize thinking and wisdom. What's so strange about the appearance of crows? Shoesham retracted his gaze and closed his eyes solemnly. A hazy golden light emerged from his body and quickly gathered behind him to form a pair of light wings and a halo. Although it was a little dim compared to Mingfei, it was equally sacred and flawless. The crow seemed to be frightened, and it flapped its wings with a strange cry and flew away, disappearing in the wind and rain. Swoosh! Mingfei returned with a sword and stood side by side with him. The alien army behind him had been killed. In the deepest part of the white light, there was a rumbling sound of horse hooves, and a vague huge shadow appeared from the rapidly enlarging white light. The flames in front of him steamed the heavy rain, turning the pouring rain into white mist. The white mist was blown away by the wind and then condensed again. The flames appeared and disappeared in the white mist, like a giant fire beast breathing. It seems that he has found a new alien horse, and changed into new clothes. Mingfei stared at the eight-legged horse that was as majestic as a mountain and sat on the false god, and spoke coldly. They met again after more than half a year, and they were not the only ones who had changed. Sleipnir, the horse under Odin's seed, whose head was broken and chest was stuck open by Mingfei, was resurrected again, and was also dressed in purple and gold armor, with purple flames dancing in his eyes, and deafening thunder erupted from his throat. The image of Odin itself was also slightly different from the appearance when Mingfei first fought him. The dark blue armor reflected two different lights and shadows, purple and blue. On the surface of the winged cloak, one could clearly see the blackbird feathers standing in a forest, but strangely, they looked like flames burning. What made Mingfei feel extremely disgusted and hateful was Odin's face. The face that should have revealed a single pupil as fascinating as a furnace was replaced by a silver-blue mask. The surface was painted with various strange and blasphemous symbols, forming an abyss vortex that was constantly changing, as if the soul would be swallowed by this vortex even if the sight stayed on it for a while. This should not be the emotion he would have when facing the false god again, and the external manifestation of the blasphemous symbol, Shvu. What's wrong, brother? Shu Zhang's reason was not swallowed by anger because of the appearance of his enemy. Under the protection of the Emperor's holy light, he also vaguely realized that something was wrong with this Lord God Odian. No, Lu Mingfei suppressed the terrifying thought in his heart, and stared at the false god, who became even more blasphemous with full concentration again. According to the will of the Emperor, all unclean things that harm mankind will be completely purified. As soon as the voice fell, there was a loud explosion that shook the entire dark world. The surging golden red flames swept towards the false god in the white light like a tsunami, carrying the compressed air pressure to the extreme. Shu Zhang sent his greeting gift to Odian with the extreme burst of Zhongyan. This was not only the power enhancement brought by the boiling dragon blood in his body, but also represented the anger of the Emperor. Half of the ink color of Niblunjum was reflected red by the fire. The rainstorm could not penetrate into this high-pressure field at all. There was only boundless anger in the field of vision. The curved black gold spear streaked across the sky like a meteor. Facing the flames within his sight, the burly giant gently waved his Kumyunir, the world tree spear that in mythology would hit the target as long as it was thrown. Lu Mingfei was pierced by it before the Emperor's holy light of psychic power saved him. The raging tide of fire that was enough to destroy several blocks was torn into a vacuum crack in the middle. The flames solidified in front of him and were constantly absorbed by the cracks like seawater falling into the abyss. But the offensive has just begun. The holy angel emerged from the flames, appearing above Odian's head like a golden meteor, and the giant sword burning with holy flames in his hand fell on Odian's head. Odian raised his head and looked through the fascinating mask at Lu Mingfei holding the sword and fallen down. He was unmoved. Or rather, the whole world was unmoved. Shu Zhang was still holding the knife and sprinting. Murazame's alchemical field had already been activated by itself under the powerful power of the master. Tiny golden rings surrounded his knife-holding arm, and golden flames flowed on the blade like water. He had already approached Sleipnir, ready to draw his sword and kill the eight-legged horse. Regardless of whether his fighting brothers could kill Odian quickly, destroying his horse was always the most valuable option. But the next second, he froze. Although his mind was still active at high speed, his body could not move due to the restrictions of unknown laws. Time zero. The two weeping angels still had a common idea in their fast-moving minds. They were very familiar with this power that almost stopped time. Sleipnir moved his hooves and carried Odian to approach Lu Mingfei, who was frozen in mid-air. The god approached his face, and the strange mask that was spinning like a whirlpool in the abyss at all times now had countless pale eyes, as if trying to see through Lu Mingfei's soul. Chapter 164. The Lord of Change. If other creatures were faced with such a strange mask full of eyes, they would definitely fall on the spot, and their bodies would undergo some unknown changes. The densely packed eyes on the mask seemed to be the carrier of some kind of power, trying to use it to spy on the depths of Lu Mingfei's soul. But the next second, Lu Mingfei's body lit up with a blazing golden light, as if representing the anger of the Supreme Being. Odian, or the mask itself, screamed in pain and anger, and the prying pale eyes were ruthlessly torn apart by the golden light. The shackles of time solidification were also broken, and Lu Mingfei broke free from the shackles, and the giant sword burning with holy flames in his hand fell on Odian's head. And just as the sword was about to touch Odian, his towering body turned into countless black crows and scattered. Jinyu only chopped off Sleipnir's head and joined Shu Zhang, who had just cut off his 8 legs with a flaming knife. This 8-legged divine horse, which had also undergone a mutation, was killed again, and the gushing black blood turned into a bloody rain. Although it was burned to ashes by the Emperor's holy light before it touched Lu Mingfei and Shu Zhang, some of the blood fell on the asphalt road like rapidly growing mycelium tissue, forming sticky and blasphemous purple fungal carpets. Countless black crows reappeared from the shadows and gathered together to form the figure of Odian. The black feather cloak behind him had now turned into a pair of flapping crow wings hovering in the air. The eyes on the mask had disappeared and turned into the whirlpool of the abyss again. The white light was instantly stained with a layer of misty purple, like a flickering flame. The fallen god just hovered in the air, and as the wings behind him flapped, figures continued to appear in a line. Those black shadows, or Deadpools, they took off the protection of the black robes and fully revealed their hideous and twisted bodies. The black scales covering the body surface became more like a set of heavy armor that was integrated with the body. Crystalline horns grew from their heads, shoulders, chests and other places. The dark golden eyes that were originally violent and hungry were now burning with purple flames. The Valkyries of the Hall of Heroes fell with their gods. Is it bad, brother? Shuzaham keenly sensed the heaviness in Lumenfei's heart. Yeah, Lumenfei took a deep breath. It's pretty bad. If we can't purify them all here, the whole world will be over. Although he was fighting more with believers and traitors who believed in the blood god, the opponent's power was already quite obvious. It was the power from the Lord of Change. Lord of Change is just one of the titles of the Chaos Evil God in the Supreme Heaven. There are many similar titles. Fate Weaver, Supreme Eagle, Kimbao Tianzun. The title that Lumenfei heard most from the heretics was Lord of Change. What he was most worried about finally happened. The evil existence of the Supreme Heaven, the curse that was the root of the human suffering in the Dark Universe, penetrated his power into this world through the Nibelungen, even though they were separated by an infinite distance. The Empire would not easily sign the extermination order, because every planet was a precious treasure for the Empire. No matter how bad the environment was, the Mechanicus could still use it after some transformation. However, only the planets that were corrupted by chaos completely lost their value for transformation and utilization, and had no choice but to be destroyed. Even the Lamenters in the Atonement Expedition destroyed a planet that was completely polluted by the Blood God's blasphemous ritual with storm torpedoes. Lumenfei would never forget the planet that seemed to be stained with blood. It was more dazzling than a star in outer space. The huge explosion caused by the storm torpedoes drilling into the core of the planet gushed out bright red blood plasma. At the time, the planet had already become a playground for heretics and evil subspace figures to kill. The compassion of the whalers would naturally not be given to these blasphemous things. Lumenfei was certainly not afraid to fight with the power of the evil god. He did not want to see his hometown and people being poisoned by evil. Shuzaham was slightly startled, but did not ask any more questions. He just tightened the handle of Mura's aim, and a blazing ring of flames surrounded his wrist. No matter how their false gods and enemies have changed, as long as they are all purified. Before the god waved his flaming kununir to command his fallen Valkyries, Lumenfei and Shuzaham turned into two light shadows and melted in the rain, and the fight began again. A shrill scream sounded, which was the wail of the ever-changing fire being torn apart by the Emperor's holy light. Lumenfei's wings behind him spewed golden light, and he instantly rushed to Odin. I swear by the soul of the son of St. Jeremiah that I will completely purify all the filth that intends to poison this world. He roared loudly, and the holy sword turned into a golden after image and slashed towards Odin's throat. Time zero, the world fell into grey and purple, and Kununir's spit tip was approaching Lumenfei's heart. The power of the dragon alien that could make the whole world stagnate seemed to become stronger with the intervention of the strange power. Even Lumenfei's thinking was slightly hindered and stagnant, but then the Emperor's holy light broke this evil bondage. Lumenfei immediately raised his sword to block, and Jinyu's sword body burning with golden flames blocked the purple crystal-shaped spit tip. The Emperor's will bring a fatal judgment to all chaos filth. While blocking the attack, Lumenfei was also gathering another attack. A dazzling golden giant arrow formed at his side at a high speed. From the perspective of the naked eye, it seemed to appear out of thin air. Without any delay, the giant arrow turned into a stream of light and flashed in front of Odin, intending to smash Odin's head. Since the war in the Night Food Field to kill the White King, the new psychic ability obtained after the Emperor's holy light baptized his body. According to the books in the chapter library, this belongs to the Holy Word psychic power, which can project and control psychic power in the material universe. And the psychic power derived from the Emperor himself, even if it is just a trace that is small enough to be ignored, it is enough to cause devastating damage to this blasphemous heresy. As expected, as if sensing the coming of danger, Odin flapped his wings and retreated to avoid it, but Lumenfei chased after him with a sword. In the blink of an eye, the blessed and accursed had clashed hundreds of times, and only a bright stream of light could be seen flashing at high speed in the air. On the ground, Shuzaham's confrontation with the fallen Deadpool army was also going on fiercely. The Deadpools who were chosen by Odin as servants must have been the strongest hybrids in their lifetime. After being contaminated by the filthy evil power, their already powerful fighting skills were further enhanced, with extra arms, or tentacles that could condense into pink flames, but Shuzaham did not intend to engage in pure hand-to-hand combat with them. The explosion was earth-shaking, and Jungian. Infinite firepower broke out in all directions. Under normal conditions, Shuzaham needs to chant the Draken script to release the Lord Flame, and can only release it 3 times at most, after which he will enter a state of exhaustion. In the Blood Rage state, Shuzaham releases the Lord Flame faster and can expand his domain at the same time, but there is a possibility that his bloodline will run wild. But under the Emperor's blessing, Shuzaham only feels infinite energy, and the release of the Lord Flame is only between his thoughts and the raising of his hands. There is no need to worry about anything, just purify these aliens with the Emperor's wrath. Kill. 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 The flames pierced the night, and the golden red flames that swept and exploded everywhere formed a colorful and violent beauty. Shuzaham swept the fallen Deadpool army with extremely high efficiency. All the fallen Deadpools engulfed by the flames would become a skeleton, and fall into the abyss under the viaduct along with the gravel and melted asphalt. Occasionally, there would be some fallen Deadpools who wanted to fight with him in close combat, but the next second they would be beheaded and shattered by the fiery red night light that flashed like lightning. Clean up these Deadpools, and finally it will be the final chapter with Odeon. If possible, he hoped that Mingfei would let him personally cut off the head of the false god who had taken away his father. The high-speed fierce battle in the dark night continued. Mingfei held the Jinyu giant sword in one hand and the gold and psychic giant sword condensed by the holy word psychic energy in the other. The light wings behind him spewed energy to maintain the extreme speed, and he bit Odeon almost violently. After the heretic believers of the Lord of Change fell, they would become more adept at scheming and using psychic power, while their melee strength would be weaker on the contrary. Just like the believers of the Blood God would kill his enemies on the spot to release blood, while the believers of the Lord of Change would make a series of careful plans when they could smash the back of the enemy's head with a brick, and finally watch the dazed enemy walk to the road according to their plan and be hit by a car to death. So Mingfei didn't want to give Odeon any chance to use his strange abilities or escape. He wanted to destroy and purify Odeon in one breath to prevent the possibility of the filthy power of the Lord of Change leaking to the outside. The sword lights from the two giant swords were pouring down like a rainstorm. The World Tree Spear in Odeon's hand obviously couldn't withstand Mingfei's desperate attack. The gorgeous and strange dark blue armor on his body had more than a dozen cracks with golden light. With a sharp and angry scream from the mask, Odeon seized a chance to raise Kumyunir and triggered the power that tempted him to fall. But this chance was fleeting. The Jinyu giant sword in Mingfei's hand pierced Odeon's armor. Before he could tear Odeon's body apart and sacrifice his false god's blood to the Emperor, the originally dark sky instantly turned purple-red, like a flame constantly changing and flowing, solidifying into a purple pupil staring at Mingfei. Mingfei was once again bound by an unknown force. The Jinyu giant sword carried Odeon's body to the ground, but Odeon's body had begun to blur, and his limbs began to turn into black crows, trying to escape into the shadows. Don't even think about escaping. Mingfei's body was restrained, but he was still able to control his psychic energy. The psychic giant sword quickly chased after him, and while flying straight, it quickly split into hundreds of golden small swords, forming a dense attack net that completely covered Odeon, who wanted to turn into a black crow and disperse. The crow's shrill cries were endless, and the crows that flew away from the limbs first suffered a fatal blow. The gold and small swords instantly pierced their bodies, and when they reformed Odeon's limbs, they were already full of burning golden swords. The remaining sword blades covered the rest of Odeon's body, but their power was obviously not as strong as the giant sword that could penetrate directly. For Mingfei, it was enough to cut off Odeon's escape route. He shouted loudly, "Shuzaham, purify him completely." With a flash of the knife, the corpses of the fallen Deadpools besieging Shuzaham had been separated, and the blazing flames lingered on his body like a stream of light. After hearing Mingfei's voice, Shuzaham's eyes immediately locked onto Odeon, who was falling to the ground under the attack of the swords. He flashed and turned into a fiery red shadow and rushed forward. More than half a year ago, this false god took away his father in a rainstorm night. Now he finally had the strength and courage to make the final blow to this false god. Boom! Odeon fell on the elevated highway, splashing up billowing smoke and dust. The next second, the strong wind brought by Shuzaham's running had blown them away. The Jinyu giant sword pierced Odeon's chest and nailed him to the road. The sacred power attached to the other gold and small swords completely blocked Odeon's possibility of escaping. They were densely inserted into his body. The former god has now become a livestock to be slaughtered. Just waiting for Shuzaham to make a temporary end. Crack! With a slight sound, the mask on Odeon's face, which was like a whirlpool in the abyss, suddenly cracked. Under Mingfei's deliberate guidance, there were as many as 16 small swords attacking Odeon's head, but they still failed to kill him. The mask briefly withstood everything. Shuzaham's blade that was sweeping towards Odeon's neck suddenly stopped. Just a few millimeters away, he could use the Mura's aim in his hand to cut off Odeon's head and avenge his father. But after the mask was broken, what was revealed was the face of his father, Shu Tianzhao, whom he had thought about day and night in the past, and missed every time he swung his knife and fell his sword. Chapter 165 Heart Barrier. Since entering Nibelungen, Shu Zhang's face, which had always been as calm as ice, completely collapsed the moment he saw Shu Tianzhao. In the past 6 months, he has been training himself in Castle Academy almost masochistically, learning knowledge, and eagerly absorbing every nutrient that can make him stronger. He prayed devoutly to the Emperor, baptized his courage and faith with faith, and suppressed the fire of revenge in his heart with calmness. But before going to sleep every night, Shu Zhang would inevitably think of the man who smiled at them and turned his back to the false god and was swallowed by the huge waves. He fantasized that one day he and Mingfei would return to Nibelungen to rescue his father who was imprisoned by Odin. Or his father had been killed, and he would use Odin's head and blood to worship his father's life, but he would never have thought that the meeting between father and son would be in this scene in this way. Shu Zhang's body couldn't stop shaking, and the blade of Murazane trembled and moved away from Odin's neck, or Shu Tianzhao's neck. Although his body was surrounded by blazing flames, Shu Zhang felt like he had fallen into an extremely cold ice cave naked, and the biting coldness enveloped his heart. He couldn't change from a son who wanted to rescue and avenge his father to a ruthless person who killed his father with his own hands. Not good. Mingfei, who was bound in the air by an unknown force and unable to move, realized that something was wrong. This is the power of the Lord of Change. The believers of this supreme evil god are best at and like this kind of tormenting trick, giving desperate creatures a glimmer of false hope, and then the creatures have to extinguish it with their own hands. Mingfei didn't blame Shu Zhang for his hesitation. After all, he is just a child under 20 years old now. He was even a student half a year ago. Even Mingfei sighed that his brother could train such a mentality and fighting power in such a short time. In addition to his belief in the Emperor, it is obvious that the only thing that supports him is the fire of revenge that was ignited in the rainy night. Now Mingfei can only wait for Shu Zhang's faith to stabilize his thoughts, see through the evil and blasphemous tricks, and wield his sword to kill the polluted god. And he was powerless to care about anything else now. In the sky, in the center of the changing flames with colors like a kaleidoscope, there was a huge pupil staring at Mingfei. It was the blasphemous mark of the Lord of Change. At the same time, Mingfei could feel that some kind of power was invading his body more directly, and his mind felt as painful as being cut by thousands of sharp knives at the same time. The memories of more than 100 years of fighting in the past and the memories of his hometown began to reappear in front of him. After being bullied and hitting others, his aunt scolded him and then dragged him to apologize to her and help her do the duty so that she could pay less medical expenses. The first thing to reappear was the remaining memory of his hometown. But then the power realized that this level of pain did not exist for Mingfei now, and immediately began to replay scenes in the Dark Universe. The Astates of the Weeks were besieged and defeated by a group of well-equipped Astates wearing dark yellow power armor, shoulder armor with Red Bull head paint, and their flagship Daughter of the Storm was taken away. Countless mortals were sacrificed by heretics in front of him and pushed into blood-red blasphemous machines to become screaming souls. Captured comrades were tortured by the Dark Elder Xenos and were living a life worse than death, begging him to give them the honor and liberation of returning to the company of Holy Jalith. Brothers who fought side by side were swallowed by Tyranites one after another. The Lamenters Chapter unfortunately ran into a Zed main fleet again, and the compassionate sons of Holy Jalith were destroyed in this tragic battle and thrown into the dirty dissolution pool by the Zeg. Not only the tragic and sad memories of the past, but also the ominous and dark future of the chapter after it was distorted. These scenes kept reappearing in front of Mingfei, trying to use them to crush Mingfei's spirit and soul. My soul will always belong to the Lord of Humanity on the Golden Throne. You will never take my soul away, evil god. Mingfei used his firm belief to strengthen his mind and prevent the power of the Lord of Change from taking advantage of the situation. The scenes before his eyes would only make him hate the Chaos Evil God even more. Of course, the memories of his hometown were not a shock. At the same time, he was also trying to break free from the invisible shackles and recondense the divine power of the Emperor to destroy the blasphemous evil giant eye. On the ground, Shu Zhang saw his father open his eyes, but his eyes were empty and lifeless, like a living dead, staring straight at the huge flaming pupil in the sky. The purple unidentified biological matter wrapped around both sides of Shu Tianzhao's head also gave birth to densely packed white eyes as big as green beans, all looking at Shu Zhang on the side. This scene, let alone people with trypophobia, I'm afraid even normal people with a firm mind would go crazy on the spot. Dad, Shu Zhang spoke in a trembling voice, and the hand holding Murazane was still shaking. Shu Tianzhao seemed to have responded to Shu Zhang's call, and a little spirit appeared in his eyes. He tried hard to raise his head, but the sticky biomass with eyes on both sides of his head tightly wrapped around him, and more than a dozen differentiated purple tentacles dragged his face. Run, Zhang, run. Run quickly. Shu Tianzhao raised his head and screamed loudly. His expression was confused and terrified. But in the next second, he suddenly changed his expression, and turned his head to stare at Shu Zhang with a playful smile. Son, you also became a Super Saiyan. Are there signs with fire attributes? Before Shu Zhang could react, Shu Tianzhao's expression became distorted because of anger. Asshole. Lu Tianming, right. Dare to steal my woman. I will kill him. In fact, I'm also a Super Saiyan. When I reveal my identity one day, Xiaoyan should come back to me. Joy, anger, sorrow, happiness. Shu Tianzhao's expression kept changing, like a crazy mental patient immersed in his own different worlds, playing different roles, and talking nonsense. Until the end, he seemed to have great difficulty controlling his mind. His expression became distorted and hideous because of pain, and he shouted loudly, "Kill me, son. I'm going crazy because of that stupid mixed-haired bird." Shu Zhang gritted his teeth tightly, trying not to let the tears in his eyes fall. He held Murazame's hand and calmed down again, slowly walking towards his father who had undergone a strange change. Looking at Shu Tianzhao whose face was covered with tentacles, Shu Zhang took a deep breath. Although tears finally fell from his face, they were immediately dried by the flames wrapped around his body. He raised the blade again, and in less than 2 minutes, the enemy he wanted to kill became the father he longed to save. Dad, may the Emperor bless your soul. Shu Zhang said softly. Kalinka is dead. I wrote, revised, and deleted. Although I wrote the outline, it is still too difficult to write the specific plot well. I'm really sorry to all my fighting brothers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 166 The Untouchables. Shu Zhang could see his father's pain, but he didn't have time to worry about what kind of power tortured his father into this state. What he had to do now was to end his father's life and free him from the torture. The flames entwined on Murazame had disappeared, and a cold blade slashed at the former master. In the past 6 months of training with Mingfei and fighting with various enemies, Shu Zhang has transformed into a killing weapon that has begun to show its edge. He was determined to end his father's pain immediately with the coldest blade, but the blade stopped again before approaching the neck. It's just that Shu Zhang couldn't kill his father, but someone held down his palm. Shu Zhang instinctively wanted to hold the knife in his backhand and twist the blade to assassinate the uninvited guest who suddenly appeared beside him, but when he turned his head and saw the boy with a calm expression, the hostility in his heart disappeared instantly. Not only hostility, but also that grief of having to kill his father with his own hands, hatred for the real Odeon, anger at the power that polluted his father. All negative emotions disappeared, replaced by eternal tranquility. It was like a child seeing his beloved parents, a loyal minister meeting a wise king, or a boat shattered in a storm seeing the light of a lighthouse, an exhausted traveler in the desert seeing an oasis of hope. Every cell in his body seemed to be telling himself that this boy was a safe, friendly and powerful companion, and he should not be wielded against him. Although the boy was only wearing a thin and simple cotton coat, Shu Zhang could feel the warmth from him that made him calm. The storms of Nibelungen failed to disturb the boy at all, and were completely isolated by the invisible force. However, the boy did not look at Shu Zhang. He was looking down at Shu Tianzhao, who was nailed to the road and had undergone a mutation. Gah! A shrill and angry roar echoed in Nibelungen, almost tearing people's eardrums. Shu Zhang looked up and saw the huge colorful flaming pupil in the sky was torn apart from the middle. Mingfei, who was hovering in the air, seemed to have turned into a dazzling golden star at this moment, with endless golden light gushing out from his body. The invisible restraints imposed on him had already been shattered with the outflow of light. Mingfei regained his freedom, and the blasphemous power in his mind that tried to overwhelm his mind also dissipated. For the Emperor, Mingfei felt the sacred power surging in his body. He was full of fighting spirit, and the light wings behind him gushed out surging energy and rushed straight to the blasphemous evil god's eye in the sky. At this moment, Shu Zhang saw the boy's calm face frown slightly. He seemed to think that the crow-like cry was a bit noisy, so he raised his palm and gently grabbed it. Just like in the Bible, when God created the world, he said let there be light. As the boy closed his palms, the dark and chaotic Nibelungen was stained with soft golden light in a second, and the violent storm that seemed to never stop also disappeared. When the golden light bathed his body, he only felt a reassuring warmth. Mingfei didn't even have time to throw the condensed psychic giant sword, and the cracked evil god's eye was instantly melted and swallowed by the sacred power, and the world returned to peace. Then, he immediately noticed the boy's appearance, quickly turned his light wings and swooped down from the air to the boy, kneeling on one knee to salute. Father. Father. Shuzaham was very confused. Is this boy Mingfei's father? In his memory, the person Mingfei mentioned to him the most, besides that great emperor, was the Lord of the Holy Blood Angels, Saint Rise. When he mentioned this name, Mingfei's expression would become solemn, and he would respectfully call him father. He cast his eyes on the boy again, but suddenly felt dazed. When he came to his senses, the boy had changed a little. His hair changed from black into dazzling gold, and a laurel wreath made of laurel branches was worn on his smooth forehead. His appearance was the same as the holy angel in the huge painting hanging high in the Holy Blood Museum, perfect, noble, and holy. Don't be rude, brother. Mingfei's low reminder sounded in Shuzaham's ears. He woke up as if from a dream. He hurried to Mingfei's side and knelt on one knee to salute the boy like him. It was not until he lowered his head that Shuzaham was surprised to find that his father was lying naked on the ground. The blasphemous evil biomass that entangled Shu Tianzhao, the dark blue armor, the wind cloud that turned into crowings, all the signs of Odium disappeared from him. It's really him. Mingfei also noticed this. He thought it was a blasphemous method of the Lord of Change to shake the mind of his young brother. Father, is it you? Has the power of the evil god invaded here? He asked the boy hurriedly, eager to get his answer. But the boy did not answer Mingfei. As his fingers gently stroked, Shu Tianzhao's naked body floated up from the ground, with his arms open in front of him. This scene was a bit indecent, but then Mingfei and Shuzaham also floated in the air under the control of the boy's power, and stood on both sides of Shu Tianzhao in the same posture. Before the two of them understood what was going on, two more bodies flew over from a distance. They were two mutated fallen Deadpools, which seemed to be left by the boy on purpose. The other Deadpools had all been turned to ashes in the power that swept Nibelungen before. However, the mutation of one of the Deadpools was deprived of it. The crystalline horns, changing flames and other mutations disappeared, returning to their original appearance, leaving only fine black scales and pale dead faces, with dark golden pupils full of fear. The 5 bodies were lined up in front of the boy, like specimens for an experimental exhibition. The boy's eyes swept back and forth over their bodies silently, and his vicissitudes of life seemed to have witnessed the birth and destruction of countless stars. Mingfei and Shuzaham did not have any strange emotions in their hearts. The boy seemed to have an invisible halo on him, which made them feel extremely at ease. After a long time, the boy put their bodies back to the ground. The 2 Deadpools were directly wiped out, like burnt paper turned into ashes and scattered. A crow flew out from here. The mortal world can isolate all the power of the supreme heaven, and the crow may have hidden itself. Find it and exile it. The boy finally spoke. His voice was heavy and vicissitudes that did not match his appearance. But what was even more surprising was that the boy spoke fluent Chinese. We will follow your will and never let this planet fall into the hands of the Chaos God. Mingfei immediately knelt on one knee to salute and accept the mission given by his father. He was not too surprised that the Primarch could speak Chinese. When he came back, it didn't take him long to switch from High Gothic to Chinese. With the ability of the Primarch, it is estimated that it will take less than a few hours to master the languages of all the countries in his hometown. The boy nodded gently, and his figure began to blur, as if he was ready to leave. Your bloodline is very special. You're an alternative untouchable. I need more time to observe. Chapter 167 Return to the real world. The boy left, and the sacred golden light of Nibelung gradually faded. The dark night and violent storms returned. However, the blasphemous power belonging to the Lord of Change had disappeared completely. Mingfei and Shuzaham stood up solemnly at this time, and the golden holy light surrounded them to prevent them from being disturbed by the storms that came again. Then what should I do with my father? After a long while, Shuzaham spoke softly. Mingfei woke up from his thoughts. He glanced at Shu Tianzhao lying naked on the ground, and hesitated for a long time before answering. He should be fine now. But I suggest you be mentally prepared, because no one can control the future. Shuzaham nodded silently, leaned over and carried his unconscious father. The road under their feet suddenly began to tremble violently, and the spiritual holy light that formed wings behind them was also quickly restrained and dissipated. "Let's leave here quickly, the Nibelungen is going to collapse." Mingfei, who had experienced the collapse of the Nibelungen once in the night food field, was keenly aware of this. He pulled out the Jinyu grey sword nailed to the road and quickly rushed towards the Mercedes-Benz in the distance. "Collapse? Is it the power of the St. Gerard just now?" Shusaham also hurriedly followed, and asked as he ran past the several gaps in the elevated road that he had blown up while clearing the Deadpool core. "It must be. If this place is not destroyed, the evil god of the supreme heaven will definitely make this place a portal for his evil entity army." The unconscious Shu Tianzhao was thrown into the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz. The Mercedes-Benz S500, which was intact except for some damage to the window glass, turned around and sprinted in the direction it came in. Originally, the alchemical field of the alien tower could be directly removed, and the exchange with Nibelungen could be completed and returned to the real world. But this elevated road does not exist in the real world. Mingfei was worried that after the alchemical field was removed, the car would suddenly appear in mid-air and fall off the cliff. If the two Emperor's warriors died because of the crash of the vehicle, then they would not have the face to return to the Golden Throne to face the Emperor and St. Gervais. It was not until he saw the toll station standing in the wind and rain, brightly lit but empty, that Mingfei removed the alchemical arrays of the alien tower one by one and returned to the real world. At the same time, the sacred power surrounding the two of them had completely disappeared. "It's over for now." Shusaham parked the car on the side of the empty road and breathed a sigh of relief for a while. He turned on the screen of the car CD, and the time showed that it was already 10:46 inches the evening. Then he remembered something, took out his mobile phone and pressed the button, and as expected, he saw a series of red missed call reminders. Just when Shusaham was worried about how to reply to his mother, Mingfei reached out and picked up Johann Strauss's The Blue Danube Waltz from the list of CDs in the car. At this time, he needed music to calm his mood and sort out the words of the sentences in his brain. Although there were only 2 short sentences, they gave quite a lot of information. The first was the crow that flew out of Nibelungen. Judging from the blasphemous power that was almost about to control Nibelungen, the one who could be called Crow by the boy was most likely the Lord of Change. The Weeks once purified a heretical sect that performed blasphemous rituals to try to summon the Lord of Change to descend, and learned that this most powerful and cunning demon under the Lord of Change existed. The spiritual energy fluctuations before the summoning alone caused the entire planet to shake. They are also called big demons. Let a big demon run out of Nibelungen and enter the real world. Mingfei's heart has been covered with a shadow. But the good news is that the real world can suppress the psychic power of the supreme heaven extremely strongly. Mingfei is an example. The psychic power he exerts in reality is less than 1% of that in Nibelungen. In Nibelungen, he is a protagonist only strive freedom, but in reality, he is just a mass-produced Zaku. Of course, the combat power of his mass-produced Zaku is still stronger than that of other Soldier A and Cannon Fodder B, but this is also bad news. If the Lord of Change hides himself, it will be more difficult to find him. The Lord of Change's followers love and are best at hiding behind the scenes to plan various conspiracies and intrigues. When they officially come on stage, a catastrophe will sweep the whole world. What Mingfei didn't expect was that the dragon hybrid bloodliner that he had always been resentful of turned out to be the precious untouchable bloodliner. He learned about such a human existence from the books left by the think tank of the war group. Untouchables are a kind of human beings with mutated genes in the universe of the human empire. Strictly speaking, they are a kind of psychic. It's just that the untouchables are feminine, while normal psychics are positive. Just like the positive and negative poles, the positive poles have different levels of affinity for the psychic energy at the subspace, while the negative poles have different levels of resistance to psychic energy. The untouchables belong to the highest level of the negative poles, and the psychic energy will be disintegrated when it approaches them. It is said that when the Emperor was still walking in the world, there were untouchables among the elite Emperor's claws who served him, which is quite mysterious. If the hybrids are untouchables, then why can my brother Shusaham and I still accept the Emperor's psychic blessing? According to the characteristics of the untouchables, the psychic blessing should be invalid. Mingfei couldn't help but start thinking about new questions, and so did Shu Tianzhao. Although he was controlled by the power of the Lord of Change, he was not hopeless after being purified by the Emperor's sacred power. Forget it. The first task now is to find that big demon that left Nibelungen. Mingfei's face turned cold. That false god really played a trick on them. If St. Jovis had not appeared, no matter whether Shusaham could bear to kill his father in the end, it would have left an indelible shadow in his heart, and would have become one of his biggest weaknesses and drawbacks in the future. The old accounts have not been settled yet, and now a lot of new accounts have been added. Now the whereabouts of the real Odeon is a mystery, whether the Lord of Change who came here is a complete body or just a trace of power, whether Odeon has fallen, all these can only be told after Shu Tianzhao wakes up. Dragons, false gods, evil gods, pollution, more and more problems are plaguing his hometown, but there are no Astartes fighting for it here. He and Shusaham can still maintain an incomplete state in Midlungen, and their combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced after returning to the real world. Next time if my father appears, I'll see if he can baptize the body with holy blood, Lu Mingfei thought to himself. Chapter 168 No such person. I accidentally scratched my dad's car. Well, it's okay, I'm not hurt. No, I can handle it. I'll be back soon. Mom, you should rest early. Shusaham tried to calm down, and finally comforted Su Xiaoyan after a long explanation. In front of Lu Mingfei, he was a warrior, but in his mother's eyes, he was still a child who never grew up. What's more, it was hard for Su Xiaoyan not to think of something back in a special way when she went out with her male classmates on the first day of returning home from abroad during the summer vacation. But even if Shusaham told the truth, that he rushed into a certain unspeakable space with his classmates to save his ex-father, and killed Deadpool and false gods under the protection of the Great Existence Emperor, and that he also had the blood of the Dragon Clan and the blessing of the Emperor in his body, and now the number of Deadpools he killed is more than the number of dishes Su Xiaoyan has cooked in her life, not to mention his mother, Shusaham himself didn't believe this statement from another perspective. What should I do next? Shusaham turned off the phone and breathed a long sigh of relief. Let's go to the branch first. Lu Mingfei glanced at Shu Tianzhao, who was lying unconscious in the back seat. The promise to rescue him had been fulfilled. The next step was to investigate Shu Tianzhao's past and his experience in Midlung. Understood. Shusaham nodded, restarted the car and drove into the city. Papa's German country-style restaurant was closed, but a few dim lights were still on in the store. When she saw the famous S-Class and the A-Class carrying a naked man behind them push open the glass door and walk into the store, Iris Sunny, who was eating potato chips and watching Gossip Girl at a table, was terrified, afraid that she would be threatened and silenced because of some unspeakable habits of the two super big men. Contact your dedicated personnel and give him a comprehensive physical examination. Lu Mingfei ignored the strange expression of the white-haired girl and said directly in an imperative tone. The majestic and emotionless tone made Iris shudder. She didn't dare to ask more questions and quickly turned off the screen of the MP4 and ran upstairs to make a phone call. The approaching blasphemous power of the universe made Lu Mingfei's mind tense again, as if he had returned to the fighting state of the Astartes champion. The weak treated mortals with pity, but it did not mean that they would tolerate combat slaves with low combat efficiency in battle. In that universe full of monsters and demons, even the Astartes who were like Superman in solid power armor could not easily turn the tide, and were even no different from cannon fodder in some super battlefields. Therefore, they can better understand the difficulties and despair of mortals, and are willing to do their best to fight for the Emperor and protect mankind. Don't forget why you wear this armor. This is what the war group leader once said to the confused Lu Mingfei. I'll go back first, and come back when Mom falls asleep. Shusaham put Shu Tianzhao on the sofa, and tore off a few clean tablecloths to tie an apron around his body. You also need to get enough rest, there's no battle yet. Lu Mingfei shook his head, wanting Shusaham to conserve his energy, after all, he was still a child. He's my father, I have to accompany him no matter what. Shusaham said silently. Not long after he drove away, Commissioner Iris, who stayed behind in the branch, came down from upstairs, walked to Lu Mingfei with a very respectful attitude and reported. The medical staff cooperating with the college branch is on the way, Commissioner Lu. Iris had seen Schneider, the so-called most ruthless executive director of Castle College, but he was nothing in front of this S-level. It was hard to imagine that the iron-blooded killing aura and the majesty that could not be offended would be displayed by a child who was a little too young. The other party's words were unquestionable orders. In front of him, she was no different from a soldier who had just entered the battlefield. Even if the other party asked her to strip herself naked now, she would not dare to disobey the order. And the other party's fighting power was even more needless to say. Half a year ago, Iris saw Lu Mingfei slaughtering a B-level fallen hybrid like a chicken. Some time ago, she was browsing the college forum and saw the video and news of the Double S showdown and was so shocked that her eyes almost fell out. Yeah. Mingfei just nodded, his eyes still focused on the screen of his mobile phone. The search for the entry about Xu Tianzhao in the Castle College information database has not results. It is possible that the information you want is not recorded in the database. Eva gave a reply. Since Finkel joined the Weeping Angels Club and exposed most of the secrets, the war personality Eva of the college's intelligence secretary Norma has opened private service permissions to several Weeping Angels. When they first joined Castle Academy, Mingfei and Shuzaham searched for information about Xu Tianzhao. After all, the briefcase he was holding had the emblem of Castle Academy, but they found nothing. After that, they devoted themselves to learning dragon knowledge and daily combat training, and temporarily put Xu Tianzhao's matter aside. Have you searched with my authority? Mingfei's authority is S level. The black student ID card represents the same level of authority as the principal in the academy. Basically, the entire Castle Academy can be freely visited, and the ancient books and secrets about alchemy in the forbidden book area of the library can be moved at will, although after moving them back, they will be scolded by old Tang. Although I don't understand it very well, whoever wrote this thing is simply bullshit. My authority is equal to yours, Captain. With me and Fingal, you have the information channels of the entire Castle Academy. However, some information is more secretive when it is kept in your mind than when it is written on paper. Then help me connect with Principal Ange. After a brief thought, Mingfei decided to ask Principal Ange himself. This old soldier also has many secrets. The operator Eva understands and is helping you connect with Principal Ange. As Eva's witty words fell, the call was quickly connected. But Jean Ange's private hotline is not accessible to everyone. Except for a few people, it takes a lot of effort for others, including the directors of the school board, to contact Ange. Hello, Mingfei. Ange's doting and kind tone on the other end of the phone was like a kind elder seeing a younger generation who had not returned home for a long time. I remember that it's not the Chinese New Year yet. Are you calling me so early to wish me a Happy New Year? Along with his words came waves of melodious symphonic melodies. It is obvious that Principal Ange has a very rich artistic life. Let's talk about the New Year's greetings later, Principal Ange, Mingfei said. Do you know a person called Xu Tianzhao? Xu Tianzhao? The other end of the phone fell silent. Ange seemed to be trying to dig out the past of this person from his memory of more than 100 years. After a long while, he replied, I'm sorry, Mingfei, I don't have any impression of the person you are talking about. Including your little secrets hidden deep inside. Yes, Ange heard the heaviness of Mingfei's words and said very seriously, even my little secrets don't have this person. Did you encounter any special accidents in your hometown, Mingfei? A new enemy has appeared, Principal Ange. New enemy? False god. In the myth book, his name is Odion. Mingfei only briefly told Ange the story of Odion and Nibelungen, and he didn't mention a word about the power in the Dark Universe, the Lord of Change, let alone understanding such things. Just knowing their names and existence is a kind of blasphemous pollution. Of course, Mingfei was quite happy to preach the glory of the great Emperor to Ange, but at least not over the phone now, at least in the Holy Blood Hall or Ange's office. You met Odion, the main god of Norse mythology, in your hometown. That sounds pretty crazy. In the concert hall of the Garnier Opera House in France, after apologizing to the female companion beside him, Ange stood up and left the VIP seats on the second floor. The Australian Chamber Symphony Orchestra, which came from afar, had just performed Mozart's Last Symphony halfway. So, you killed him. If it was someone else, Ange might ask, how did you escape? But he had an invisible confidence in Mingfei, and asked him if he had killed the enemy. No, the one who was killed was just a substitute, and the real one disappeared. Mingfei said. Do you need me to go to China? Not yet. The primary goal now is to find the real Odion. Okay, I will inform the professors in the college to study Norse mythology. I hope this can help. In the lobby of the Paris Opera House, which is as magnificent and luxurious as a jewelry box, the luxurious Baroque-style hanging lamps illuminated Ange's solemn face. In addition to the Dragon Clan, have the gods that once appeared in mythology also become enemies of mankind? Eva. Yes, Captain. Pay close attention to the abnormal phenomena and situations that have appeared around the world, and summarize them for me. The situation you are talking about includes many categories. Are there more specific and detailed branches? Otherwise, you'll spend a long time reading the summarized data every day. Eva reminded. Details, Mingfei frowned. This question really stumped him. The heretics who believe in the Lord of Change are not the same as the heretics who believe in the Blood God. The Blood God's followers are bloodthirsty and bloodthirsty, and these heretics will not be able to hide for long before they will expose themselves. But the heretics of the Lord of Change are different. When these cunning people appear, a disaster or catastrophe has already occurred. Evil and unknown religions, blasphemous sacrificial rituals, and the forces that have grown rapidly recently are all worth paying attention to. Mingfei reluctantly summarized these characteristics. After all, the most he wiped out in that dark universe were traitors and heretics who believed in the Blood God. If the Lord of Change chooses to lurk in human society, he will definitely develop and pollute his own followers and forces. I understand, Master. And, Eva, Mingfei stared at the girl smiling at him in that blue screen of her mobile phone, you should also pay attention to yourself. Me? A waterfall of numbers flowed in Eva's beautiful big eyes. I'm just a dead consciousness. Finger said, why you call me? Yes, wetware. I'm just a webware now. The only threat to me is the electronic virus, but I am still confident that I can eliminate the threat in this regard. No, some powers are far beyond your imagination. Don't be careless. Once you notice anything abnormal, notify me immediately, or let Brother Finger notify me. Mingfei shook his head solemnly. Power, similar to the golden power that enveloped you. I understand, Master. I will pay attention. There were too many chores before the new year. My mother's identity information was stolen and the police came to visit 2 days ago and said that my mother practiced X. Anyway, I'm sorry for the unstable updates. The Holy Hall wishes all the fighting brothers good health, career and wealth, rapid progress, and family love, rabbit spirit. Happy New Year. Chapter 169. The Secret Blasphemy of Heresy. The medical staff were almost trembling all over as they completed a series of physical examinations for Xu Tianzhao. During this period, Mingfei kept staring at them from behind with his golden eyes, which could be described as electric eyes forcing people. Don't be so nervous, Commissioner Liu. They are all trustworthy doctors cooperating with the college, and they won't do anything tricky. Wan Qian, a student of the Alchemy and Mechanical Department of Castle College, wiped off the cold sweat and tried to maintain a smile on her pretty face under the undisguised murderous aura. 2 hours ago, when she had just finished a comfortable bath and was about to lie in bed to welcome the rare vacation tomorrow, Iris Sander called her and asked her to receive guests in a hurry. Oh, not to receive S-Class to the hospital. The news that the iron-blooded and ruthless Minister Schneider's attitude towards S-Class was there to be angry but not to speak had spread throughout the entire executive department, and Wan Qian, as a branch commissioner, did not dare to neglect it. She immediately took off her nightgown, put on the executive department suit and rushed to the branch. Mingfei ignored her, his eyes still fixed on Xu Tianzhao on the bed, the golden light in his eyes flowing like mist. While guarding against the possible remaining blasphemous power of the Lord of Change, he was also thinking about the alternative untouchables mentioned by St. Grace. Unfortunately, Mingfei himself knew little about the untouchables. He only knew that this kind of blood belonged to the psychic killers and that there was an army of untouchables around the Empire during the Great Crusade. Now he could only hope that St. Grace would tell him more information when he appeared again. The patient's condition is a bit strange. The middle-aged doctor who was in charge of the examination of Xu Tianzhao came over with a stack of drawings, looked at Mingfei with great fear, and then chose to report to Wan Qian. Blood pressure, electrocardiogram, nerve reflexes, all parameters show that his body is very healthy, and there is no sign of damage to the brain in his skull. Speak to the point. Wan Qian reminded. It's not clear what the reason is yet. The patient can't wake up. We need time to do further examinations. The doctor scratched his head in embarrassment, causing a few strands of his already sparse hair to fall. Will he become a vegetable? Wan Qian glanced at Mingfei cautiously. Strictly speaking, it's not PVS, because the frequency of the patient's EEG waveform fluctuates very high and always maintains a gamma waveform, which means that the patient's mind is highly active, but he just can't wake up normally. Mingfei frowned. This was not good news. Xu Tianzhao was the only person who might know the whereabouts of Odion and the Lord of Change. If Xu Tianzhao couldn't wake up, he would lose the clue to quickly find the location of the false god. What should we do next? Xu Ziham walked up and asked softly, his expression calm. After arriving at the hospital, he had been standing in the corner of the examination room without saying a word. Check and confirm the situation. If he really can't wake up, airlift him to the Holy Blood Museum and keep him there. Don't leave him here. Mingfei said. He was worried that Shu Tianzhao would leave some secret and blasphemous marks on him, and Odion or the Lord of Change might come to visit again. But it would be great if it was true, and it would save Lu Mingfei the effort of searching the world for their traces. Understood. By the way, have you told your mother about him? Lu Mingfei asked one more question. He also knew a little about the family situation of the fighting brothers. No, and I won't tell her in the future. Shu Zihang shook his head and looked at the unconscious man with an EEG cap on his head on the recline. There was only firmness and determination in his eyes, like fine steel. Mom is very happy now, there is no need to add to her troubles. He is now like his father, and has stepped into the dark side of this dangerous world, even deeper than Shu Tianzhao, and can understand his father's painstaking efforts to not involve his family. But there is no need to pretend to be a coward. With his ability and status, it is not difficult to give Su Xiaoyan a decent life. The entrepreneur father is often unable to go home because of his busy work, and even if he goes home, he often watches TV and pays attention to the news. Su Xiaoyan curls up on the sofa and looks at the bag she wants with a tablet. Shu Zihang sits aside and watches all this without saying a word, like an outsider. Well, don't leave a hole in your heart. Lu Mingfei patted Shu Zihang on the shoulder. In the future, he will face more evil challenges, and his heart must be firm and impeccable. At Wan Kaian's signal, the doctors began a second more detailed and comprehensive examination. However, after several hours of busy work and repeated electrode stimulation methods without success, the doctors were at a loss for Shu Tianzhao, who was healthy but in a deep coma. Do you want to cooperate with the Orthodox Li family? I heard from senior brother Li that there is a medical department in their family, and the founder learned from Qingyun, Wan Kaian suggested, but was politely declined by Lu Mingfei. This was obviously the sequel left by the blasphemous power of the Lord of Change. Since there is no way to deal with it in a short period of time, Lu Mingfei doesn't want more people to come into contact with it. The sky outside the ward window has been covered with a layer of dark blue, as if even the sun is unwilling to get up early in the winter cold. Wan Kaian yawned and looked at the biological father of Shu Zihang, an A-level student who was placed in a special ward. When she wanted to retreat and go home, she thought, a weak non-combat specialist like me should not be involved in the battlefield of these S-level and A-level monsters. S-level stuffed a piece of paper into her hand. Wan Kaian was stunned, subconsciously thinking that the S-level doctor wanted her to go down and get medicine. She was even more confused after taking a look at the neat handwriting on it. What is this? Buy everything I wrote, as quickly as possible. Lu Mingfei said, his bright golden eyes staring at Wan Kaian made her dare not say a word, and she could only nod frantically like a chicken pecking at rice. Unfortunately, the prescription paper did not write instant noodles, potato chips, and cola, but parchment, firewax, gold powder ink, and other things that obviously could not be bought casually in supermarkets and convenience stores. You should go back and rest too. If there is nothing else to deal with here, then we will take your father back to the college directly. I'm always worried about him staying here. Lu Mingfei said to Shu Zihang, who had also been waiting here with him all night. Then, Shu Zihang hesitated for a long time, and finally made up his mind to say it. What on earth is it that has contaminated and controlled my father? He will never forget the purple-black biological matter that entangled Shu Tianzhao's body, the densely packed eyes, the flowing tentacles. If an ordinary person were to witness this horrific scene, it would probably become a nightmare for the rest of his life. A blasphemous evil power that comes from the ancient evil Lord of Change. Lu Mingfei did not hide it from Shu Zihang. This was something his first battle brother had to face. Now the most evil force under the Lord of Change has left Niblungeon and sneaked into the real world. Now, in addition to the aliens and false gods, we have one more target that needs to be purified. Shu Zihang thought for a while and asked, then is it more threatening than the Black King in the Dragon Doomsday theory? No matter how big or small the threat is, as long as it is an enemy of mankind, it will be completely purified and eliminated, Lu Mingfei first reminded Shu Zihang, and then his face became solemn, but it is true. If we don't determine the source of the power of the Lord of Change as soon as possible, when the corrosion spreads and turns into a catastrophe, this world will become the plaything of the Lord of Change. Didn't Lord Saintles say that the real world can greatly suppress that kind of power? Shu Zihang asked. In Niblungeon, he also listened to the boy's words word for word. Because of this, it is even more difficult for us to locate it. The shortcomings of the aliens will be exposed, but the blasphemy of the heretics becomes secret. Lu Mingfei usually prepares for the worst when dealing with all problems. After all, the luck of the weak is generally not very good. Chapter 170 Blood of Transmaturity. The shadow of chaos touched my hometown lightly, just like a drop of ink falling into a glass of clear water. Maybe the clear water will not change much in a short time, but if the ink is allowed to drip continuously, it is only a matter of time before the clear water becomes turbid and dark. Mingfei drove around the city for most of the time and finally bought everything Mingfei wanted. When she rushed back to the hospital, it was almost noon. She thought that the two masters of S-level and A-level were not the kind of people who would order delivery, so she ran to buy 2 hearty lunches and returned to the ward specially arranged for them in the hospital. She had no psychological burden about her fall from a branch specialist to a chores maid. Anyway, it was fine as long as S-level didn't ask her to warm the bed. Mingfei frowned slightly, expressing a little dissatisfaction with Mingfei's efficiency. After that, without wasting time, he directly took the bag with several large rolls of parchment in her hand. Under Mingfei's puzzled gaze, Shuzaham used Mura's aim as a pair of scissors to cut the parchment into long strips, while Mingfei took the classical feather pen that she had spent a lot of effort to buy from a European luxury collectibles store, dipped it in gold powder ink, the ink used for the golden fonts on the Spring Festival couplets, and wrote something very seriously. Could it be that as the Spring Festival was approaching, S-level suddenly had a brilliant literary talent and poetic inspiration, and decided to write a couplet by hand as medical expenses to this hospital? As for whether the S-level calligraphy was valuable, that was another matter. This hospital had a cooperation with Castle College, and all the expenses incurred were reimbursed by the college. After all, the soldiers who bled on the dragon-slaying battlefield could not charge others for medical expenses when they came back to heal their wounds, right? But she soon discovered that the words written by Mingfei on the parchment were not within her language cognition, and there were also various strange symbols mixed in them. After more than a dozen of these parchment strips filled with unknown words and symbols were completed, Mingfei and Shuzaham worked together to wrap these strips around Xu Tianzhao's body and bed. This was not over yet. Mingfei took over the remaining parchment from Mura's aim and skillfully cut it into thin strips to continue writing the Emperor's motto on it. Shuzaham held a few pieces of firewax with a serious face. The temperature in the ward was obviously rising sharply. After Mingfei finished writing, the sticky and hot wax mud poured directly from Shuzaham's palm, which made Mingfei tremble with fear. The golden seal in Mingfei's hand left a skull pattern on the bright red and hot wax mud, and directly pasted the freshly baked pure mark on Xu Tianzhao's body and bed. The originally bright and ventilated ward felt weird in an instant. The visual impact brought by the strong religious atmosphere seemed to remind people of those zombie movies in Hong Kong. The zombies that looked like Qing Dynasty officials were covered with yellow talismans, just waiting for some nasty extras to come out and start the monster. This scene also reminded Mingfei of a mummy she had seen when she was interning at the Egyptian branch in her senior year. Its bloodliner was most likely a 5th-generation species of the Dragon clan. The surface of the linen bandage that wrapped it was covered with complicated black alchemical spells. I didn't expect that S-level and A-level would have such skills. The rumor on the forum that S-level was an out-and-out fanatic was not groundless. Deal with anything as soon as possible. After it's done, we will take your father back to the Holy Blood Hall as soon as possible. Mingfei glanced at Xu Tianzhao, who was surrounded by the Emperor's motto and the mark of purity. This kind of protection should be effective, but it's hard to say. After all, the real world suppresses psychic power quite severely. Gurgle Mingfei's stomach began to rumble. He hadn't eaten since entering Niblungen last night. The body of the hybrid was reminding him that it was time to replenish his nutrition. In a long-term combat state, Astates does not need to stop to eat or drink water. The power armor contains a self-replenishing high-energy liquid food library. With the transformation surgery, the metabolism of Astates can be maintained without spending extra time eating. Nothing, I just need to spend more time explaining to Mom. Shuzaham looked calm. Well, only by purifying all heretics and aliens, this world and the people you cherish will not be harmed. Mingfei ate the potato beef rice bowl that had become a little warm and comforted Shuzaham. He did not reject emotions. Emotions are a very precious thing. Most Astates regard emotions as redundant and weak, but the weak always remind them why they wear this armor and what their real responsibilities are. Some cold-blooded Astates regiments will even include mortals and friendly forces in the range of artillery attacks on the enemy, and take it for granted that all this is correct. After Shuzaham left, the lunch that was originally bought for him also went into Mingfei's stomach, but compared with the consumption last night, it was just a drop in the bucket, so Mingfei continued to act as a maid and go downstairs to buy food for the S-level. On the way, a nurse from the hospital came in with a bottle of nutrient solution and planned to hang Shu Tianzhao up. Then, when she saw the things on the bed, her face turned pale and strange. She almost ran out to call the police. Fortunately, Wang Kailan came back in time with 10 rice bowls to stop them and explained the situation to the hospital. Just when Lu Mingfei was enjoying the 7th rice bowl, his cell phone rang, prompting him that there was a new message. He turned on the screen and saw that the sender was Eva. Dear War Captain, I have collected some suspicious information records in your city, which are related to dragon alchemy. Eva's information collection efficiency is powerful. This has been reflected in Japan. Eva collected information to confirm the location, and Lu Mingfei was responsible for leading the team to clear the scene. Specific situation. Lu Mingfei replied. If it was just a general smuggling of alchemical items, then it would be left to the college branch to deal with. Now his primary goal is to escort Shu Tianzhao to the Holy Blood Hall as soon as possible. Blood of transmaturation, there is such a thing circulating in the merchant circles of this city. It is said that as long as you take it, you can greatly extend your lifespan, or even achieve immortality. In the eyes of ordinary people, this information is identified as false at first glance, but the merchants firmly believe it. Either blood of transmaturation really exists, or the person who proposed this thing has a very high degree of persuasiveness. In any case, I think this behavior is considered heresy. Lu Mingfei replied with his thumb on the keyboard. Extended lifespan, immortality. These two words have great temptation to humans no matter where they are in any era, especially the upper class. For ordinary people, extending lifespan is just working for a few more decades, and immortality is working for hundreds or thousands of years to buy a villa, but for those who hold wealth and power, even if the word immortality has only a 1% chance, they are willing to pay for it with determination and money to make up for the remaining 99%. Lu Mingfei has encountered many such situations. Some planetary governors who are greedy for enjoyment try to extend their lifespans by various means. When they indulge in the joy brought by eternal life, the power of blasphemy has spread. He himself used a grenade gun to kill a planetary governor. The other party's body was visibly morbidly swollen and green. The power of the Lord of Plague filled the entire governor's mansion, but the governor and his servants were unaware of it. Then where are they now? Lu Mingfei put down the lunchbox. It's not certain yet, because the agreement signed between Castle College and Orthodoxy does not allow me to directly interfere in the affairs of the mixed bloods here. I didn't sign that thing, keep checking. But your current identity is still Castle College under the secret party. I suggest that you connect with Principal Angers first, and through communication, you and I will have certain authority to continue investigating in the country. I think the Orthodox family should also have noticed the information about the blood of transfiguration. Then I will go find them myself and purify them. By the way. Lu Mingfei picked up the lunchbox and continued to eat. He directly admitted that the matter was caused by the Lord of Change. If that's the case, it's worth it for him to temporarily put aside the matter of sending Shu Tianzhao to the Holy Blood Hall and focus on purifying the chaotic power. Okay, I will provide you with intelligence assistance as much as possible. Yes. After returning to the academy, I will ask Brother Finger to give you the Emperor's motto and the mark of purity to protect you. Lu Mingfei said that facing the power of the Lord of Change, everything must be done with extreme caution. Maybe the other party will deliberately leak information next time to pollute Eva, who is collecting intelligence. This is a loss he cannot accept. Are those religious objects on Mr. Shu Tianzhao? I can't find the relevant language on them in the known language library on Earth. Lu Mingfei glanced at the camera in the corner of the wall and knew that Eva was watching here from the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Yes, the Emperor's sacred motto and the mark symbolizing purity should be able to protect you from the unknown blasphemous power. Chapter 171. What Astates would do. After finishing 12 boxes of rice, Lu Mingfei wiped his mouth with satisfaction, feeling full of strength. Wang Kaiyan was stunned, amazed at S-Level's appetite and bottomless stomach. If she ate 2 or 3 boxes, she would be too full to walk. But before she could fulfill her duty as a maid to clean up the lunch boxes, S-Level suddenly stared at her. Although his eyes were as clear as water, Wang Kaiyan couldn't help but feel scared. As the saying goes, when you are full, you'll think about sex. Could it be that S-Level wants to upgrade herself to a maid after eating? But to be honest, S-Level's temperament is quite appealing to her. The calmness and determination that can keep a straight face even if the sky collapses in front of him seems to be innate, and the murderous aura that inadvertently reveals from the determination makes people shudder. When his companions have a full sense of security. but S level doesn't seem to be 18 years old yet, but it's probably okay. Generally adolescent boys tend to mature early. Tell me about your level in the executive department, and your word spirit. Mingfei's indifferent words interrupted Wang Kaiyan's wild thoughts. Wang Kaiyan came back to her senses, quickly sorted out her emotions and stood up straight to answer seriously. Wang Kaiyan, 04 level alchemy and mechanical department, currently a B-level intern specialist in the Chinese branch of the executive department, and the word spirit is blood system not. While Mingfei was tidying up the lunch boxes piled on the table, he recalled the effect of the other party's word spirit. He memorized the word spirit periodic table of Castle Academy without much effort. The caster of the word spirit of blood system not can enhance his sensitivity to the dragon bloodliner, so as to locate the possible dragons and hybrids within the scope of the field, which is a very useful detection skill. At the same time, this also brought Mingfei a new idea, such as finding a way to transform the ability of the bloodliner not from locating potential aliens to locating potential chaotic blasphemous forces, so that even if the heretics hide deeply, they may be detected and purified. How familiar are you with this city? Mingfei asked again. Very familiar. I have been driving the bloodliner not every day in the past few months to search in the city to find potential wild hybrids outside the orthodox and introduce them into the secret party. Then how about your personal combat effectiveness? My executive department training exam rating is A. Wang Kaiyan puffed up her chest with some pride. Although this result is not the top one in the executive department, it is at least an excellent student. If it weren't for the fact that the word spirit is not suitable for combat, she might be able to become an A-level specialist. I'm asking about your combat effectiveness. How many dead pools can you deal with at the same time? Mingfei naturally didn't know what a rating exam was, and in his opinion, no exam could compare to the life and death test on the battlefield. Wang Kaiyan was stunned. Why did he suddenly bring up this topic that he couldn't even touch? What does being able to deal with several dead pools at the same time mean? If even one of those dangerous forbidden things appeared, many people would die. Has it become a unit for evaluating combat power in the S level? I have never seen that kind of monster, and I should not be able to deal with even one. Wang Kaiyan lowered her head like a frost-bitten flower, hesitating, and her pride disappeared instantly. Mingfei frowned. If they couldn't even kill a low-threat alien like Deadpool, how could Castle Academy train such a fart of warriors? The same was true for the first batch of members selected by Shuzaham to join the Weeping Angels. When Mingfei asked them kindly during the dream trial whether they were afraid of the Zerg aliens, they all said that they had watched Starship Troops and Ender's Game, and 2 of them said that they were Zerg Masters in StarCraft. Although the answer was irrelevant, seeing their confident look, Mingfei let them walk into the field of the Source Girl Dream Taper 3x3. The result is beyond doubt. Yuan Xin materialized at corner of the Zerg battlefield that Feng Jianli's personality experienced in Mingfei's memories: fierce knife worms, ferocious warriors, terrifying evil woman worms, sadistic queen worms as big as mountains, and brain-eating leeches lying on their faces, controlling the brain through tentacles that pierce the eyes, ears, mouth and nose to turn humans into puppets, which makes people's sand value drop wildly. The ultimate living biological weapons that surpass human imagination and are born for efficient killing. The Tyranids are such a hugely threatening alien. All people who entered this real dream have experienced the horror of being killed by different Zergs in different ways. If Yuan Xin hadn't removed the nightmare taper in time, I'm afraid all the new members would have died of brain death. Mingfei was quite dissatisfied with this. In the dream, they were all assigned the identities of entities with superhuman bodies. As a result, they were all killed by aliens without firing a single shot. It was really too shameful. Shuzaham performed relatively well. After spending a few seconds to adapt to the environment, enemies and new body, he rushed into the insect swarm without hesitation with a ripping chainsaw sword, although he was inevitably swallowed by the insect swarm in the end. After that, Shuzaham politely suggested to start with the more basic ones, such as the dead pools they'd faced in Japan. So Mingfei changed the threshold for joining the Weeping Angels to killing a dead pool under the pseudo-god alone. Special talents with special skills such as Alchemist Sergeant Lao Tang could be exceptions or temporarily relax the conditions. He did not agree with Anka's leader or the one. When facing alien enemies, they should fight side by side with their brothers and crush them mercilessly with the Astartes Legion with firm faith and high fighting spirit. No, it was the Astartes Legion that hit them head on and crushed them mercilessly. Obviously, Wang Kaiyan was not qualified in terms of combat effectiveness, but her words were indeed quite useful. I don't want to waste time looking for someone to choose, so I'll pick you. Lu Mingfei sighed. Go back and rest now. I'll let Eva notify you when the time comes. Ah? Wan Qian was stunned again. What does S level mean? Does it mean that she should wash herself clean like the concubines in a harem and wait for the emperor's visit? What do you want me to do? She asked cautiously. There are heretics in this city. I want to eliminate them before the pollution spreads. Lu Mingfei said, you should be of some use. If you don't receive a notice from Eva, it means that you are not needed or it is useless for you to come. Just continue your schedule. Oh. Wan Qian responded softly, feeling hit. It's not because she doesn't need to sleep with the emperor, but because she is at least an excellent student of B-level Bloody Castle Academy. She never fails in various subjects. Even in Castle Academy, where the appearance is not as good as a dog, there are a group of excellent boys pursuing her. However, in S level, it becomes being useful and not needed and useless. However, when she thought of the S-class warrior who could compete with Principal Angus, Wan Qian comforted herself that it was not that she was too weak, but that the standard of S-class companions was too high. She was just a passerby in front of him. After Wan Qian left dejectedly, Lu Mingfei called Xu Zhang and briefly explained to him that there might be chaos heretics in this city. He sent Xu Tianzhao back to the academy and put it aside for the time being. The current primary goal is to find the heretic who possesses the blood of transmigration. Do you have any better suggestions? Lu Mingfei asked. The wealthy business class in this city believes that this thing really exists, which means that he, or the person who represents him, has considerable influence, so we can start from this aspect. After I go back, I can ask Dad. He is a big entrepreneur in the city and may have heard of this. Xu Zhang said after a moment of silence. Then let Eva collect information about the upper class in this city and investigate them one by one. Even though he has been back home for a while, Lu Mingfei is still trying to adapt to the need to handle these matters in a gentle and law-abiding way. Whenever this happens, Lu Mingfei can't help but compare himself with his past self, thinking about what the Astates, the champion of the Weepers, would do. They would definitely come to the door with a bolter and say, open the door, Weepers. Then if there is a problem, the bolter will be purified on the spot, and if there is no problem, go to the next one. Chapter 172 Black Prince Group. In the presidential suite No. 002 of the Regent Hotel, a woman lay lazily in the bathtub, pink petals and white foam cover and the beautiful spring scenery underwater that made people imagine endlessly. Her eyes reflected the night view of the prosperous CBD area of the coastal city outside the floor-to-ceiling window, and there was still a little crimson eye shadow in the corner of her eyes. Perhaps the hotel took into account that some distinguished guests might have a different mood and like to watch the night view while soaking in the bathtub, so they installed this panoramic floor-to-ceiling window in the bathroom. Today's weather is particularly good. People who were trapped at home by the winter rain have come out to go shopping. Below the hotel, the meteor lights hanging on the sidewalk trees on both sides of the commercial street have lit up. Silver, golden, blue, the colors of the lights are constantly changing. Looking up, it looks like clusters of meteors falling from the sky, which is magnificent. People who have returned to their hometowns to spend the spring festival, young couples who were enjoying their holidays, the colorful light falls on their smiling faces, and the atmosphere of beauty and happiness ripples among the crowd. I want to give you the earning that never sets. I want to send you a postcard that represents love. I want to give you the luck that never sets. We will travel the world together heart to heart. As the pleasant music sounded, the woman closed her eyes and nodded gently to sing along. As far as her personal taste was concerned, this cover of Sunshine in the Rain was more to her liking, and it was said that it was expected to win the annual Golden Song of the Year. My love remains unchanged. The woman then leisurely stretched her hand out of the bathtub, took the phone wetly and pressed the answer button. Hello, this is the housekeeper who lives a life of idleness and waiting to die, Miss Sue Onks, the vampire on Wall Street. What can I do for you? If you call me that, I wonder if it's too late for me to invest in Twilight now and see if I can get the role of the heroine. The voice on the other end of the phone was equally lazy, accompanied by the crunch sound of chewing potato chips. How is the little angel now? Was there a river of blood after he returned home? Anyway, I won't approach him without the boss's order. As far as I know, a guy who belongs to the same underworld as me tried to monitor the little angel, and was stabbed to death by him with a broomstick. Jiudmei stretched out her slender legs, which were so wide that they could even reflect the light from the water, and placed them on the edge of the bathtub, with her delicate skin steaming with heat. An orthodox person? I think so. Anyway, it's none of my business. The little angel will figure it out himself. Mei felt more relaxed and happy than ever before. Mingfei's growth can only be described as amazing. At this time last year, he was still thinking about whether to muster up the courage to join the school literature club because he had a crush on that pure girl in the literature club. Now Mingfei is holding a gun that is more manly than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he has an alchemical sword in his hand that can chop down Deadpool without blinking an eye. The most important thing is that the noble White Emperor who is said to be under the Black Emperor has become a skeleton and is placed under Castle College, guarded by a half-baked human Dragon King and a Dragon King who has not yet woken up. No matter how Mingfei did it, even if he picked it up, it shows that he has strength. Why didn't Mei pick it up? This drastic change in strength and character made the wet nurse team originally prepared for him completely useless unless they really went to feed him physically. Hilbert Jinan had completely regarded Mingfei as an illegitimate child. The war personality of the intelligence system of Castle Academy was now the personal secretary of the Weeping Angels Society. Next, as long as the dragons showed up, Mingfei would kill them with a knife, slaughtering the second generation and the first generation, then the 4 Dragon Kings who held power, and finally the Black King of the End of the Gods. Peace would be restored to the world, the girl would give herself to the hero and give birth to a litter, and mankind would live a happy and beautiful life, and the story would end here. The boss has shown up and given orders. It's time to work after you've been touching the fish for so long. Su Wangsa said. Hectares, the organization finally remembered me. The boss's old friend is not dead yet, and his maid came to this city to sell. The boss asked the 2 of us to find his old friend's maid, killed her. Mei answered quickly, to be honest, I don't have any idea. Each of those people is more dangerous than the other. Compared with them, the 2 of us are harmless little white rabbits. No, you just need to find her and take the little angel. Eva can't do anything in China, and the little angel needs information now. That's okay, or the monsters will be blown to pieces by the little angel's guns. Mei stretched out her foot to close the curtains in the bathroom, and slowly sat up from the bathtub, with a thrilling whiteness emerging from under the water. By the way, this is the first time the boss has popped up since returning from Japan. He is not in a good condition. She seemed to have remembered something and asked tentatively. It seems that there should be no problem. Su Wangsa's tone became a little strange on the other end of the phone, but his mental state is indeed changed. For example, the boss told me that he is now serving a greater existence. Except for what he told me at the beginning, there is no other information record about the blood of the mortal. The mouse wheel rolled quickly, and Mingfei's eyes stayed on the computer screen, quickly flipping through the personal information of the gentry of this city compiled by Eva. Regarding this kind of information, these people are unlikely to communicate through electronic communication, and should be more inclined to traditional verbal communication. It is normal that Eva can't find online information. Shuzaham said, taking the tray from the respectful branch specialist Iris Sani on the side, which contained 2 large plates of fragrant German-style fried pork chops with white rice and vegetables. Then do you have any good suggestions, brother? Mingfei was not in a hurry to wheat. Their social circles. When these businessmen reach a certain level and cannot continue to develop their business, they will choose to expand their social circles and get to know other upper-class people. The news of the transcendent blood should have spread from here. If we can enter their circle, we may be able to detect the heretics behind the scenes. Shuzaham said. What a trouble. Mingfei frowned slightly. Then kidnap them all and interrogate them one by one. This is not difficult for us. Shuzaham said very harshly without changing his expression. No, it's not sure whether they know where the heretics are now. We must eliminate them before attracting the attention of the heretics. Mingfei shook his head. Now he has equated the appearance of the transcendent blood with the blasphemous power of the Lord of Change. Facing such a cunning heretic, he must not act rashly, otherwise he is likely to fall into their plan and be gradually manipulated. Then we should find a way to enter the social circle of these businessmen. But it's a bit difficult. Those who think highly of themselves will screen new members who join the circle, just like our regiment recruits qualified soldiers. You can't squeeze in by drinking a few sips of red wine, smoking a cigar and wearing a brand-name suit. How is your father? Have you got any information from him? Mingfei asked. He has never heard of the blood of the mortal world, nor has he heard of anything like this. It may also be that the father's circle is not high enough. There are many entrepreneurs with more assets than father in the list of information provided by Eva. Shuzaham said truthfully. Too restrictive. Mingfei felt a little helpless, took the fried pork chop rice next to him, and decided to enjoy the food first to activate his rigid mind. But Shuzaham's eyes noticed the information page that was still automatically sliding down on the computer screen, and a familiar group name jumped into his eyes. The Black Prince Group. This coastal city's leading enterprise, a giant that drives the GDP of the entire city alone, started as a mining company, and after being well funded, began to invest in various fields. Basically, they invest in anything that makes money. Xu Tianzhao once disguised himself to drive for the boss of this group. After he and the 9 million Maybach accidentally died together, he was able to act as if nothing had happened, and changed to a new car and a new driver the next day. Shuzaham didn't believe that there was nothing strange. Maybe Xu Tianzhao was lurking and disguising just to get some information about the Black Prince Group. And as the boss of the Black Prince Group, the circle he came into contact with was definitely the highest, just like the Black Office building of their group in the CBD area of the city that seemed to be directly inserted into the sky. Of course, compared with those powerful dragons in Castle College, the Black Prince was just that. Kidnap him and ask him clearly. This idea quietly arose in Shuzaham's mind, but he immediately threw it away and turned to explain the situation to Mingfei. Eva, check the location of this businessman. Mingfei swallowed the steak in his mouth. After about a few seconds, the computer screen refreshed a map, and the coordinates showed that the boss of the Black Prince Group was in Norway. Not in the country. Shuzaham was stunned. But his child is in your country. Eva quickly sent a new file, and a fat boy with shiny black hair appeared in front of Mingfei and Shuzahan. Xiaoyan. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 173 Seduction. The eldest son of the Black Prince Group was sent to study in the UK by his father when he was 4 years old, so as not to become a playboy. And now he has become a playboy who can speak English. Shuzaham quickly read through Xiao Yifeng's file. Bring him back directly. Eva should be able to confirm his location. Mingfei temporarily put down the plate. Yes, a rich second generation like him who is rich and loves to show off will be the target of the so-called upper-class circles to win over, and we can use him to get intelligence. Shuzaham nodded. Then as the chief secretary of the Weeping Angels, I need to remind the two captains. The picture on the computer screen changed, and a fluorescent blue girl's half-human image appeared in front of the two people, with a waterfall of numbers flowing in her eyes like an anime character. Hello, Eva. Shuzaham greeted politely. Hello, Deputy Leader. Eva smiled and responded, the affairs related to the mixed blood in this city are currently mainly handled by the Orthodox Li family. The secret party can't intervene too much. I suggest that you two use a slightly more covered method to kidnap him, at least don't cause too much noise. Then knock him out and tie him up. After returning to the country, the target has 5 to 12 bodyguards following him every time he travels. Even if they are all knocked out and tied up, the bodyguards who come to take over after 8 hours will immediately notify the police when they find that they are missing. So Xiao Yifeng has to take the initiative to let them leave. Shuzaham frowned slightly. Can you let me look at his file again, Eva? Of course. The image of the girl became illusory, and Shuzaham carefully read Xiao Yifeng's file again. Mingfei sat aside and quietly finished the remaining fried pork chop rice. Although he could not act as directly as Astrata due to his identity and environment, he would not let him have too intense emotions in his heart. Maintaining loyalty and peace is a compulsory course for the Weepers. Although they fight for the Empire and humanity, the identity of the cursed founding army still makes them suffer from the exclusion and doubt of the Empire and even other chapters. At the same time, the bad luck that haunts them, the blood hunger and black rage that have revived from the depths of their blood, the Astratas of the Weep silently accepted all this, but still maintained their loyalty to the Emperor, and would never do anything that would bring shame to the holy blood of those by defecting to chaos. Maybe we can try to seduce him. Shuzaham suddenly said. Seduce? Mingfei came back to his senses. Seduce with what? Beautiful girl. This idea was not something Shuzaham came up with on a whim. Britain happened to be one of the bases of the secret party, and Eva had dug up all of Xiao Yifeng's past experiences studying in Britain, including his nouveau-riche lifestyle. Under the dual influence of the open atmosphere and the red pound, every week young beauties from different countries follow Master Xiao to his rented villa in London to spend the night together. But we lack people who can seduce each other. Shuzaham fell into deep thought. He and Lu Mingfei were both men, and obviously did not meet the requirements. Men dressed as women. He glanced at Lu Mingfei, neither of them could do it. The craft Munich beer is here, with a higher proportion of malt, and Minus can drink it. Iris Sunny, wearing the standard British-made outfit, opened the door with 2 glasses of dark red beer with foam, and was respectful to the 2 boys in the room who were much younger than her, not daring to neglect them in the slightest. Senior Sister Iris should be able to take on this task. Shuzhan glanced at the maid's pretty face with short white hair and nodded. Mission? What mission? Iris was shocked. She thought that she could only run errands as a B-level branch specialist. How could you be able to participate in S-level and A-level missions? As long as you think it's okay. Lu Mingfei didn't care about it. His only evaluation of women was mainly based on their combat effectiveness. Senior Sister, do you know Xiao Yifan? What? Iris suddenly came back to her senses from her astonishment. Yifan? Sun Yifan? I've heard of him. Didn't he win the championship of StarCraft not long ago? I remember that before junior brother Lu entered the academy. It's Xiao Yifan. Shuzhan interrupted her and corrected her. The young master of the Black Prince group. Yes. We need to ask him something, and we need someone to trick him over. You want to kidnap him? This is in China, and there are legitimate police watching. Iris looked worried, not because she was asked to sell her body. In her sophomore year, Castle College has a spy class to teach girls how to play to their strengths in missions. Of course, they will not be banned like in a certain Hong Kong spy movie. When they are silent and lurking, they are unknown and inconspicuous Cinderellas. When they need to make a sensation, they can pick up the crystal shoes and transform into luxurious princesses. When they need to fight, they will skillfully pick up the Uzi submachine gun to clear the whole scene. Legally speaking, it is not as serious as kidnapping. It can only be regarded as illegal detention. Shuzhan said very seriously. But this is also an illegal act, Iris said weakly. Can you find out Xiao Yifan's itinerary, Eva? We need a chance to meet him. Shuzhan did not continue to argue with Iris, and turned back to look at the computer screen. Of course, but the person you choose may not meet the standards. Eva's blue head popped out from the lower right corner of the screen, like a girl next door who was secretly observing the situation through the window. Why? I personally think that the image of Senior Sister Elise meets the requirements of the mission. Shuzhan was puzzled. Although Elise didn't know who was talking, she still proudly straightened her waist. Specialist Elise is a cheerful and cute British girl, but in Xiao Yifan's browser and chat history, he obviously has a special liking for Asian girls with red hair and queen-like styles. What do you mean by queen-like style? Lu Mingfei was not very clear about these special terms in his hometown. In it generally refers to older girls or young women who are mature in appearance, figure, personality and temperament, and have some unique personalities, Eva explained, and then added, the above is from Bedu Encyclopedia. Oh. Lu Mingfei immediately lost interest and closed his eyes again to continue thinking. The Queen type. Shuzhan clicked on the newly highlighted entry link of Eva, which was full of various indecent photos. He frowned and closed the page. Can this be used to threaten him? If he doesn't obey, I will threaten him to post all these photos on the internet. Theoretically, it can, but it is not efficient and wastes time. Then we have to find another girl who meets the Queen type standard. Shuzhan was a little troubled. This kind of rich second-generation young man, find a beautiful girl to get naked in front of him. I don't believe that he will still think of the Queen type in his mind. Iris looked at these 2 steel straight men and thought silently in her heart. Then Eva, do you have a recommendation list? Shuzhan helplessly threw this difficult problem to the secretary of the battle group. The one kind specialist you met during the day meets the standard of the Queen type, and the word spirit is still biased towards the detection type of blood system not, which can help you effectively detect potential mixed blood threats. One kind's file popped up on the computer screen, and Shuzhan recalled that the one kind senior sister seemed to be quite beautiful. Then please notify her, the sooner the better. Shuzhan glanced at Lu Mingfei, who looked calm, and felt a little anxious. He felt that the current efficiency was too slow and he needed to follow the rules. Unlike the previous Japan, where Genji was responsible for leading the way, he only needed to be responsible for exterminating the aliens, which was extremely efficient and he didn't have to worry too much about the consequences. They blew up the shrine, and the Japanese branch could help them clean up. Chapter 174 High-end hunters often appear as prey. At 11:32 p.m., we went to Tinghai Bar. The bar's decoration is classical and luxurious. The rows of luxury sports cars such as Ferrari, McLaren and Maserati parked at the door are like stars surrounding the moon, which invisibly divides the crowd who want to enter this bar. The bar is warm like spring, and the unique fragrance of red wine, men's cologne and women's perfume are mixed into a unique mellow smell. Unlike those popular bars where DJ rhythms are blaring and men and women twist their bodies on the dance floor, Qinghai Bar is not noisy. The melodious piano music is floating, and men in formal suits are holding high-heeled glasses and chatting with celebrities. Feelings and hormones are quietly diffused. Young people in the upper class like this elegant social occasion very much. They open a bottle of expensive Louis XIII, listen to piano music that they don't understand but is very nice and high-end, and drink with beautiful ladies. When they are deeply drunk, they may even invite her to have breakfast. Xiao Yifan, wearing a silver white suit and with his hair neatly combed, sat on the soft sofa on the second floor of Qinghai Bar, holding a brand new book in his hand, with a sad and timeless look. You, a fairy with light wings, hide in the green and shadow of the beach, open your voice and sing about summer. Oh, if I had a sip of wine. The pure drink that has been refrigerated underground for many years, once you taste it, it reminds people of the green country, the flower god, love songs, sunshine and dance. It can be seen that Mr. Xiao recited the poem with emotion, but reciting poetry in a place like a bar, no matter how literary he is a bit inappropriate. Mr. Xiao has been studying abroad for so long. Has he been influenced by the unique poetry and cultural atmosphere in the UK? He has been studying poetry so hard after returning to China. The friend who accompanied Xiao Yifeng said with a smile. Oh, my senior sister always says that I look like a local tycoon who digs coal. I'm just catching up on my cultural knowledge. I will recite a poem in front of her later to make her look at me with new eyes. Xiao Yifeng took the goblet on the table and drank the excellent Chateau Latte red wine in one breath like a mouthwash. He began to recite again, hey. A sip of wine. The sweetness that has been refrigerated underground for many years tastes like the goddess of flowers, green earth, dance, love song and burning joy. Is your senior sister a British girl? Can she understand your Chinese poetry? My senior sister is a pure Chinese, and this is John Keats's Ode to a Nightingale translated into Chinese. The Tang and Song poems seem a bit old, and my senior sister probably knows it better than me. To be able to make a gentleman like Mr. Xiao, who is both gentlemanly and elegant, fall in love with her, your senior sister must be very beautiful, right? Are there any photos that can open our eyes? I definitely can't let you see it, lest you have any dirty thoughts in your mind. Xiao Yifeng snorted. Anyway, she is very beautiful. I have regarded her as my goddess since kindergarten, and I will not marry anyone else in this life. If the glass of wine has the heat of the south, is as red as a human face, is full of the true taste of the fountain of inspiration, and the pearl foam floats on the edge of the glass, and can dye my lips crimson, I will drink it all, quietly leave the world, and disappear with you in the dark woods. As he spoke, Master Xiao recited a poem emotionally. Master Xiao, you are handsome and loyal, and your family conditions are good. Isn't she tempted? A friend lead with his eyes open. There is no way, my senior sister is not an ordinary person, Xiao Yifeng said with a faint sadness. The daughter of a Swiss banker? Or the daughter of an oil tycoon? Friends were surprised that the successor of the Black Prince group couldn't even conquer a girl. I told you she's Chinese. Anyway, my sister's family is really, really awesome. Not to mention my family, even if 10 of my families were added together, they couldn't compare to them. Xiao Yifeng sighed. The friends looked at each other and realized that this was a topic that couldn't be touched, so they changed the topic and talked about other things. Have you ever tried giving gifts? I've given a lot of gifts, but they were all returned. Gold and diamonds are too vulgar, and I'm not interested in airplanes and yachts. Besides, my sister likes to do difficult things like windsurfing, surfing, and skiing. It's embarrassing for me to do these things. TSK, then your sister is really awesome. Friends were shocked by the girl Xiao Yifeng mentioned, and couldn't find the right words to describe her for a while. Now I'm trying to go to the same university as my sister. I heard that she was going to study in the United States, and I risked being blocked and asked the name of that university. This time, I'm going to get my dad to send me to that university no matter what. Xiao Yifeng had a determined look on his face. There are many good universities in America. Is it one of the Ivy League? Neither. It's a university called Castle. It's not very famous, that's okay. If it was one of the top Ivy League universities, with my grades, I really don't have the confidence to ask my dad to spend money to send me in. Without even reading the last section of Ode to a Nightingale, Master Xiao and several friends clinked glasses and divided up the bottle of Chateau Latour red wine worth more than 6,000 yuan. Strange, did Ting Hai get a new pianist? His level was still average yesterday, how come he suddenly has a performance level? Xiao Yifeng raised his eyebrows. He listened carefully for a while. Master Xiao can even play that piano? His friends exclaimed in amazement, is it because of your senior sister again? Well, if my senior sister likes it, then I can go and learn something from her. At least we can have something in common, Mr. Xiao disagreed. It's not like we don't have the conditions. My dad often tells me to learn more, otherwise I'll be outdone by others but she played the spring waltz really well, and her level is almost the same as those concerts I attended in Europe. How about going to take a look? She must be a beauty. You see quite a few people gathered at the balcony, a friend suggested. So what if she's a beauty? No matter how beautiful she is, she can't be as beautiful as my senior sister. Although Xiao Yifeng said this, he was still a little curious in his heart. He unconsciously stood up and walked to the corridor on the second floor to look down. When he made a move, several burly men in black suits wearing sunglasses and with serious faces also appeared and followed Xiao Yifeng closely. This scene scared many people around. You can't see anything from this angle. Xiao Yifeng stuck his head out, and could only see a slender figure in a white dress sitting in front of the shiny black Steinway grand piano in the center of the first floor. Her jade white hands were like elves in the forest, leaping quickly on the black and white keys, accompanied by the melodious spring waltz, which gave the audience a sense of comfort like rippling spring water. Then let's go down and take a look. He couldn't stand the urging of several bad friends, and was pushed and pulled down to the first floor. She is really beautiful, and she plays such a good piece of piano. Which university is this talented girl from? Why haven't I heard of such a person? After witnessing the girl's beauty, her friends were intoxicated by the sound of the piano and admired her from the bottom of their hearts. It's okay, but not as beautiful as my senior sister. Xiao Yifeng stared straight at the confident and beautiful girl on the piano. Okay, don't mention your senior sister, see if you can use your ability as Mr. Xiao to catch this talented girl. My friends started to cheer. Spring waltz ended neatly with a variation of the melody in B-flat major. As the girl in the white dress pressed the last key, the audience seemed to feel the warmth of spring and the blooming of flowers. The slight tiredness and drunkenness in the body in the middle of the night was swept away. Thunderous applause resounded throughout the venue. The girl in the white dress stood up, lifted her skirt lightly, saluted the audience around her, and walked down the piano platform. People took the initiative to make way for her. She walked straight to the bar and ordered a glass of red wine. Many handsome men or men from wealthy families took the initiative to come forward and want to talk to her, but soon left with a polite rather than embarrassed smile. It's interesting. Most people can't catch the eye of this girl. Several friends began to add fuel to the fire. Mr. Xiao, don't you play that piano? Why don't you go up and chat with her? No, it's boring, Xiao Yifeng expressed disdain. It's just playing the piano. My senior sister plays it better than me. If you don't even have the courage to approach a girl who is worse than your senior sister, how can you pursue your senior sister? Who said I don't have the courage? Go ahead. Xiao Yifeng was immediately unhappy when he heard this. He drank a glass of red wine immediately, slightly adjusted the collar of his suit, and then walked towards the bar with a heroic and high-spirited manner like Yon Yu who went alone to Beacon. Many people immediately recognized the eldest son of the Black Prince group, and they all stopped to observe with interest whether the plump returning young master could still maintain his polite demeanor after being rejected, but to everyone's surprise, Master Xiao sat next to the piano talent and the two of them communicated face to face for several minutes. It seemed that his humorous words made the other party smile beautifully. Not long after, the girl in the white dress took the initiative to hold the hand of Master Xiao, who was a head shorter than her, and walked towards the stairs. In the envious eyes of everyone, the complacent Master Xiao gently waved to his friends, and let the girl in the white dress take him to the third floor. There are many empty rooms on the third floor of Tinghai Da. After all, men need a place to spend a long time before inviting ladies to breakfast. What Dad said is indeed right. It is indeed right to learn more things. Xiao Yifeng felt the soft touch from his arm, immersed in the girl's beautiful profile, and felt a little light-headed. He regarded this chat as a practice for meeting his senior sister, but he didn't expect that the other party was so interested, and intriguingly expressed that she wanted to communicate with him in depth to learn more. Is the soundproofing here good? The girl in the white dress put her arm around Shay Yifeng, tagged the wall lightly, put her mouth close to his ear and asked softly. The warm fragrance immediately made Shay Yifeng numb all over, and another impulse had covered his brain. Who said that only foreign girls are open? Domestic girls can also make people excited when they are open. Sorry, senior sister, I'm sorry for you this time, and I will be your good man in the future. Okay. The decoration quality of Tinghai Bar is absolutely no problem, he said righteously. Then let's go straight in. The girl in the white dress pointed to one of the rooms. It's okay, just go in, I'll call the boss of Tinghai and ask him to book the entire third floor for me. Mr. Xiao said, patting his chest. Then will these of yours disturb us? The girl glanced at the men in black suits who were still following closely behind him, and said softly. It's okay, Mr. Xiao coughed twice, stretched out his hand and skillfully took out a stack of bright red banknotes from the arms of the suit, and stuffed them directly to the bodyguards without counting, and said generously, thank you for your hard work, take these for a midnight snack, and pick me up tomorrow morning. But, the man in the black suit was a little embarrassed with the banknotes. But what? This is Tinghai Bar, what can happen? Let's go quickly, don't disturb me and Miss Wan from communicating about piano experience. Xiao Yifeng frowned. After the bodyguards withdrew reluctantly, the girl in the white dress took Mr. Xiao into the room, and after closing the door, she immediately pushed him down on the bed impatiently and began to unbutton his suit. After a while, Mr. Xiao was left with only a warm vest and a pair of shorts. No, don't be so impatient, right? We can have some drinks. Xiao Yifeng sighed in his heart that Miss Wan was so skilled and must be an old hand. He was indeed a little young. No, haven't you drunk enough down there? The girl in the white dress's expression and voice suddenly became indifferent. The shy and welcoming attitude just now had disappeared. Master Xiao did not notice that her flexible fingers were quickly kneading and checking his suit and shirt. A moment later, his hands were tied behind his back by his shirt, and Miss Wan's cold palms continued to grope him. I didn't expect Miss Wan that you actually like this. Oh. Slow down, I'm a little sensitive and ticklish. Master Xiao was already full of expectations for this beautiful night, but the next moment. Hey, Miss Wan, why did you stop? The girl in the white dress ignored him and pressed the headset. The target has been confirmed to be clean, and there are no eavesdropping tools. As soon as she'd finished speaking, two boys in black windbreakers pushed open the door and walked in, one with an indifferent face, and the other stared at his body thoughtfully. Mr. Xiao opened his eyes wide and realized that something was wrong. Could it be that these two cold-faced handsome guys were going to spend a wonderful night with him? Oh shit. Don't do this. Although he doesn't discriminate against gay relationships in the UK, it doesn't mean he wants to be fucked by a man. Chapter 175 Banquet. Will we not be disturbed in the next period of time? Xu Zhang asked. No, he asked all the bodyguards to withdraw. I also checked him and there is no eavesdropping device used to protect the employer. Wan Kailan glanced at the fat boy with his hands tied to the bed and a towel stuffed in his mouth, whimpering, and answered seriously. S-level and A-level seem to be loyal supporters of speed is of the essence. When she learned that the target was still hanging around outside, she immediately changed her clothes and prepared to carry out the mission after being called to the branch. Thanks to the excellent genes of the mixed bloods and the target's low resistance to beauty, Wan Kailan hardly spent too much effort except for being a little nervous when playing the spring walls. How long would it take? He said tomorrow morning, but his phone is in my hand. Wan Kailan handed Mr. Xiao's phone to Xu Zhang. Then you can let Eva imitate his voice to handle things when necessary. Xu Zhang nodded. Thank you for your hard work, senior sister Wan Kailan, leave the rest to me. Xiao Yifeng's eyes were filled with tears, thinking that the innocence of the old Xiao family would be destroyed in his hands today, and the beautiful dream turned into a nightmare in an instant. He closed his eyes painfully, not knowing how much destruction this shy flower would face next. Xu Zhang didn't know Xiao Yifeng's rich inner drama. He sat on the bed and said coldly, "We won't hurt you, just ask you a few questions, and you can leave safely after the end." He opened the black tennis bag on the bedside and pulled out Mira's aim, so please cooperate quietly. When Xiao Yifeng heard that the other party didn't want his chastity or his life, he immediately nodded like a chicken pecking at rice to show that he would definitely cooperate. Have you heard of the blood of transfiguration? Is this thing circulating in your circle recently, saying that it can increase people's lifespan and even immortality? Xu Zhang asked, while taking off the towel stuffed in Xiao Yifeng's mouth. Lu Mingfei was watching quietly not far away. After observing that Xiao Yifan was not contaminated by the blasphemous power suspected of chaos, he did not interfere with Xu Zhang's interrogation. He was not good at this personally. He had interrogated traitors, heretics and aliens before, and they would not have a chance to survive. Transcendence blood. Are you heroes here for that thing? Xiao Yifan was stunned, and then he had a sad face, but I haven't bought it yet. You know. Xu Zhang raised his eyebrows. It seems that choosing this little fat man as the target is the right choice. My father told me that, and told me to buy 2 bottles for him if it's not expensive. If the 3 heroes are interested and want to have a sip, I can pay for you to drink. We don't want to drink it. Xu Zhang shook his head. We just want to know who is selling this thing. This, Mr. Xiao, who was tied to the bed, was embarrassed. I don't know this yet. If you don't know who is selling it, how will you buy it? You pay online, and he mails it to you offline? Or does this thing have a specialty store like it does? One kind thought it was a little funny. She now roughly knew what the 2 weeping angels were investigating. There was a suspected secret party and a hybrid organization outside the Orthodox who was selling unknown alchemical potions to the wealthy class in this city. Theoretically, this matter should be handled by the local Orthodox, with the castle branch helping out, but the 2 elites seemed to be eager to make a contribution and insisted on investigating privately. As for what the consequences would be, one kind didn't have the heart to think about it. Since she was now on an S-class ship, she should do her duty as an executive department specialist and complete her mission. At least safety is guaranteed, right? The S-class gave people the impression of a warrior who was born to fight monsters. When following him on a mission, there was no need to worry about any fallen hybrids threatening her. Miss Wan, you're such a joker. Xiao Yifan showed a smile that was uglier than crying. I only know that there will be a very high-end banquet in a few days. Invitations have been sent to all the group bosses in the city, and one has been sent to my family. As for whether the blood health products will be sold at the time, I really don't know. Where is the venue of the banquet? I don't know yet. Don't know. Then how can you attend it? The invitation said that the organizer will inform the detailed address of the banquet through private contact 3 hours before the banquet starts. Xu Zhang was speechless for a moment, and couldn't help but look at Lu Mingfei. The more secretive they hide, the more it shows that they're secret blasphemous heretics. We have found the right direction. Lu Mingfei looked calm, and did not have any other strange emotions because of the temporary interruption of clues. Then what should we do next after the banquet address is confirmed, and then set out to eliminate them? Xu Zhang asked. Well, stay the same in the face of change. I'm starting to like this sentence in the touching. 3, actually, you were police officers, right? At this time, Xiao Yifan, who was tied to the bed with his hands behind his back, said weakly. How did you know? After Wan Qian and Xu Zhang exchanged glances quickly, they deliberately lowered their voices and asked. I guessed. You 3 have different temperaments, and you can't tell from your temperament that you are not ordinary people. Extraordinary. Seeing that you guessed correctly, Xiao Yifan couldn't help but speak a little louder. To be honest, I also hate this kind of criminal gang that uses fraud and superstition to sell health products. Although we capitalists have a lot of money, we will be cheated, but instead of being cheated by them, it's better to donate it to charity and accumulate virtue, right? Don't worry, a good citizen like me will definitely cooperate with you unconditionally. Dad once told me that you can't judge a person by appearance. It's not that wearing a brand suit, drinking a brand red wine, and wearing a famous watch is awesome. The most important thing is to look at the temperament. People with bad temperament will not look like a prince when wearing a dragon robe, while people with good temperament will look as elegant as playing the piano even if they use a shovel to shovel shit. There is no doubt that the 3 people in front of him belong to this category, as well as his senior sister, who all give people a mysterious, decisive and resolute feeling, especially the one sitting next to them who seems to be their boss. Unfortunately, Mr. Xiao has studied in the UK for many years and has forgotten a lot of Chinese language and culture. After exhausting all his knowledge, he can only describe the other party with fuck. I know this guy must be fucking awesome at first glance. Regardless of whether they are police or not, they are assumed to be and then cooperate obediently. Xiao Yifan estimates that his identity as the eldest son of the Black Prince group will not only not be able to suppress them, but he may even be hung on the street lamp. Lu Mingfei couldn't help but chuckle. He was amused by the cheerful thoughts of ordinary people, which is very rare in the desperate and dark universe. Follow him these few days until the banquet address is confirmed. Lu Mingfei stood up and said to Wan Qian. Now that everything that should be asked has been asked, there is not much point in staying here. Understood? Wang Kaiyan nodded. How many kilograms did you deadlift during the physical fitness test at the academy? Mingfei asked. Although Wang Kaiyan did not reach the standard of the Weeping Angel's combat power, at least she had to confirm whether she had the strength to protect herself. I remember it was 137 kilograms, but I didn't restrict my diet during this period of time. It might be a little lower now. The smile on Wang Kaiyan's pretty face was a little awkward. She had been eating German elbows for 3 years and Egyptian flatbreads for half a year. After returning to China, she must have eaten a lot of special foods. It's barely enough to protect yourself. You should pay attention to exercise in the future. Mingfei kneaded her shoulders and muscles a few times. He didn't mean to take advantage of her, but just to make sure she didn't exaggerate the numbers. I'm sorry, Wang Kaiyan lowered her head in shame, and couldn't help but ask another question out of curiosity. What is your deadlift data for S level? The normal state is now over 400, which is far from the past. Mingfei retracted his palm. Wang Kaiyan's eyes widened, and she had the urge to reach out and knead Mingfei's body in return. The bloodline advantage brought by the mixed blood is certainly stronger than that of normal humans, but what kind of monster is Mingfei who can pull 400 kilograms at this weight and age? Is this the confidence that the S-class bloodliner brings him? Then, how much could you pull before? Wang Kaiyan asked tentatively. At the same time, she felt strange. According to common sense, shouldn't strength training go from weak to strong? How come it becomes degraded when it comes to the S-class? It's about 3 tons without power armor, and 5 tons with power armor. Mingfei said. Wang Kaiyan almost thought she had heard it wrong. You could pull 3 tons before. Did you pull it in your mother's womb? She was afraid of the majesty of the S-class and didn't say it out. Can I touch it? Wang Kaiyan wanted to reach out and test the muscle strength of the S-class. It's not that she didn't trust him, but she wanted to broaden her horizons. Okay, but it doesn't make any sense. Mingfei didn't refuse because he had needed the other party just now. His physical age is only 17 years old, and he can continue to grow in the future. While Wang Kaiyan was checking S-level's physical development, Xu Zhan was making follow-up arrangements for Xiao Yifeng on the other side. From now on, just pretend that nothing happened, and don't mention anything about us to your family, friends or security. Miss Wan will be with you. If you do something uncooperative during the process, Xu Zhan turned on the screen of his mobile phone expressionlessly, then I will expose all your private videos and browser history in the UK. Master Xiao's face turned green immediately, and he subconsciously wanted to jump up from the bed to grab the phone, but Wang Kaiyan's binding skills were first class, and he bounced back onto the bed. Police brother, don't do it. Cooperate. I will absolutely cooperate with you to the fullest. If you want me to go east, I will never go west, and I will do whatever posture you want. As the saying goes, I'm not afraid of being broken into pieces, but I want to keep my innocence in the world. He is shameless, but his father still has face. If these things get out, he will definitely be beaten to death by his father with a dunghill. Even if his father is shameless, what if these things are seen by his senior sister? Then the image of a good boy that he created in front of his senior sister would be completely ruined. Just cooperate obediently, I will delete it after the matter is over. Xiao Yifeng was sweating profusely and nodded desperately. Xu Zhan turned off the screen. Looking at him like this, there should be no need to worry that he would cause any trouble. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.